Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Fantasy. Confess to the villain Empress at the start of Rebirth. Chapter 31. What? You want me? What does it mean? Could it be that you want me to show promise? Ling Tian looked at the mysterious woman with a stunned look and asked 4 times in a daze. Snort. The woman looked at Ling Tian's shocked look and couldn't help but hum lightly. How? Not willing. Forehead. 3 black lines appeared on Ling Tian's head. He didn't expect that the powerful mysterious woman in front of him really liked him. But he can't help but want to ask. That is why although his strength is good. But it's nothing compared to this woman. Is she likes her own face. Thinking of this, Ling Tian couldn't help but stretched out his hand and touched his own face. However, he looked up at the woman's beautiful face and her charming body. Can't help but shook his head. With her beauty and excellent figure, it shouldn't be too obsessive about appearance. Instead, it should have a strong resistance. So, why on earth? Ling Tian's thoughts fly. He doesn't believe in love at first sight, although he also said this to a certain devil. But in fact, he knew this was not true. Therefore, this woman must have some more ulterior secret. Ling Tian took a breath. The world-defying 7-boundary transformation god he opened has been in the highest power state. Even so, it would take at least 2 to 3 hours for him to completely restore his vital energy. But because the mysterious woman in front of her instantly killed Elder Ji Yuzan, the top of the Holy Lord, Realm's hidden sword villa, Ling Tian can absorb Ji Yuzan's vital energy scattered between heaven and earth. So, in just a quarter of an hour, Ling Tian's vital energy has already recovered more than half. The most important thing is that at this moment, he already has the power to use the Eye of Insight. Without hesitation, there was an imperceptible gleam in the depths of his eyes. The eyes of insight are open. He wanted to see what bad thoughts this woman had hit. Name: Lang Han. Identity: Rebirth, Evil Moon Empress, Lord of Devil Dao, Black Rose Founder Demon Ji, Lord of Tianyi Army Mansion belongs to the original owner Yi Qinglo. Cultivation Base: the peak of the Holy Lord Realm belongs to the original owner Yi Qinglo. Physique: Ice Phoenix Divine Body belongs to the original owner Yi Qinglo. Soul Bloodline: Demon Heart Chaos Body. Faction: Devil Dao Camp. Fetters: Evil Heart against the world's Dao Body. Enemy: Mu Wechen, the Empress of Moon. Target: return to 9 heavens, overthrow the Shinto temple, revenge Mu Wechen. Short-term plan: capture the Martial King Vitality and Luck Golden Dragon, reshape the chaotic body of the Devil's Heart. The host can also expand 3 items. Ling Tian looked at this familiar system panel. The look in his eyes gradually became weird. Roar, strength, rest. This mysterious woman, it turned out to be the master of own female devil. Cold, but why is she disguising her identity to rescue herself? And put forward this kind of request to herself that is in her mouth a big rebellion. Ling Tian is even more puzzled. At this time, he noticed that the information provided by the Eye of Insight still had 3 items that could be unfolded. His expression was stagnant, and he could not help but unfold the 3 hidden messages. Net height: 177. Measurements: 107/61, 91. See the first 2. Ling Tian's mouth twitched. Xindao. This is not it. The clothes on her chest are almost torn by her. This woman is so good that she can really be called an unparalleled empress. But he doesn't care about this now. The last item is opened. Target: destroy the host and complete the fate of fate. See this message. Ling Tian trembled all over and suddenly understood. She knows that she has a world-defying and evil mind and body. Ling Tian thought about it carefully, and then whispered to himself. So, she should be present in Wangyulan. That was the first time she discovered that she used Devil Dao's profound strength to blow the soul-breaking song. And then in the arena of the gods, she found out that she was defeating Ji Yuyan with divine power. God and demon dual cultivation. Except for her devil heart chaotic body, only the evil spirit is against the world and the Taoist body. I see. Ling Tian nodded, the dim light in his eyes and gradually condensed. He has figured out the cause and effect of the matter. At this moment, he looked at the person in front of him who had changed a lot and made a perfect disguise with a cold smile. Is this her plan? Get closer to yourself in another identity. Then, want to capture yourself and complete the fate of fate. But, Ling Tian thought for a while. Complete the destiny bond in the God setting. It's not a simple dual cultivation that can be successful. It is necessary for both men and women who are in bondage to reach the point where they are connected to each other in order to succeed. He believes that Lang Han is also very aware of this. So, Lang Han, the devil. I want to play routines. Mask flow. Interesting. The smile on Ling Tian's face gradually deepened. But this is also good. Anyway, in the own task panel, there is also a main task to win the cold. She wants to play a routine with herself. Then naturally, I have to accompany you to the end. How do you want to refuse? Lang Han hugged his arms and looked at Ling Tian, who had been silent. Not really. Ling Tian shook his head and then spoke. I want to know, what exactly do you want me to do? Snort, coldly hummed. I want your promise now. From now on, your body and heart will belong to me. Understand? Oh, Ling Tian heard the words and said in his heart, what a domineering female demon. But he reacted very quickly. The corner of his mouth was lifted, and he opened his mouth with a face of awakening. Understood. You want to fall in love with me. Cold, presumptuous, cold, and subconsciously wanted to shout out angrily. But when the words came to her lips, she was abruptly held back. This is because she realized. It seems that what Ling Tian said is not wrong. Want to complete the fate. It's not just about getting the other person's body. Let the two sides communicate with each other. Otherwise, it's totally invalid. And between men and women, willing men and women love and connect with each other. Isn't it just falling in love? Otherwise, wouldn't it be an easy way for her to come straight out of the overlord and make the bow hard? Call, coldly took a deep breath. Proud chest rises and falls. Red lips lightly said, yes, I want to fall in love with you. How are you doing? Ling Tian smiled helplessly after hearing the words. My heart said. As expected of her, it is obvious that falling in love is such a gentle word, but in her mouth, she can even hear the smell of those who follow us prosper against us and die. But even so, Ling Tian decided to follow the half-push, half-and-half, plan to welcome or refuse. After all, his previous persona was a man who had loved Yi Qinglo for 10 years. If you agree easily, that would make her aware of something wrong. In addition, if I really fall in love with the devil in the future. So it is important to take the initiative. Thought of here. Call. Ling Tian took a breath. She was embarrassed and replied. But it was my first encounter with Fairy in Sha Sha. I don't even know Fairy's name. How can you fall in love rashly? Coldly thought for a while and said blankly. My name is Lengan. From a hidden fairy gate. Oh, Ling Tian heard that the eyebrows were frivolous. He didn't expect that Lang Han would even burst out the real name of Own. All right, you already know the name of this seat. Do you have any other questions? The cold and beautiful eyes looked at Ling Tian without blinking. She wants to see what other tricks Ling Tian has to play. But she didn't expect. Ling Tian suddenly looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. The eyes are full of melancholy. It seems that after hesitating again and again, the voice of a hard and bitter smile. Fairy, you don't understand. Fall in love with someone. It's like creating a belief. Serving a god who will fall at any time. I don't want to lie to you. I fell in love with a woman before. 10 years. But the end result was too sad. So, Ling Tian never wants to suffer from love anymore. Forehead. Frozen for a moment. She has not forgotten that Ling Tian confessed to her in Wangyuelu. Then after being cruelly rejected by her, the two eventually became mentors and apprentices. She did not expect that this incident would hurt Ling Tian so much. In fact, after that, she also regretted a little. If there was no rejection at the time, then with Ling Tian's heart for Yi Qinglo, completing the fate of fate is a matter of course. Where can she use her to change her identity to attack Ling Tian? My own evil. I still have to make up for it myself. There was a moment of silence. Cold hands and opened the mouth. There is nothing wrong with loving someone. But at the wrong age, fall in love with the wrong person. That's a big mistake. But this seat can understand. At the age of Fang Gang, Blood Chi always has curiosity compared to his own older women. This is normal. Ling Tian said in a low voice. How did you know? My sweetheart is older than me. Lang Han was shocked when she heard this. Her mind was spinning quickly and then she said leisurely. That's this seat. It's the same with a friend of mine. I see. Ling Tian nodded. I have to admit that Lang Han is very decisive. Actually, I meant to say, it's not meaningless for God to let you meet the wrong person. Its meaning is to let you meet the right person now, isn't it? The cold hands encircle the chest, the beautiful look proudly peerless. Ling Tian heard the words and asked softly. What do you mean? Fairy, are you the right person in Ling Tian's life? Hearing that, Lang Han smiled and did not deny. You can say that. Yes, Ling Tian's eyes have a touch of playfulness. Seeing this, he smiled coldly. How, do you think this seat is not worthy of you? Ling Tian heard the words and looked up and down for a lot of cold. Exceptionally beautiful Tianyan. The embossed devil's figure like an unparalleled female emperor. The perfect combination of holiness and charm. It's not an exaggeration to describe it as uttering 9 heavens, fascinating the common people. No, fairy style is peerless, gorgeous 9 heavens. There is no one you are not worthy of. Ling Tian forcibly moved his eyes away and responded. Ha ha, really, cold willow eyebrows frivolous. She still has absolute confidence in own appearance. In that case, don't you want to be my seat, spoil you, love you, and give you all your life? No matter what, why not try with this seat? A beautiful smile that eclipsed the heavens and the earth came up on the cold and glamorous beauty. Then she stretched out her arms and gently hugged Ling Tian. She is tall and tall, almost the same as Ling Tian. So she bumped over, 'cause Ling Tian's breathing to stagnate suddenly, almost did not slow down in one breath. But, Nephrite is in my arms. That strong impact touch. Also Ling Tian's heartbeat speeds up suddenly. Although he was prepared, he faced such a fierce offensive. But still can't stand it. However, it's all for this. It's time to. Ling Tian squinted his eyes slightly, tilted his head to her ears and spoke helplessly. Never mind, Lengan miss, you won. Let's see if I can because of you. And forget her. Snort. Hearing the words in cold, the corner of his mouth lifted and hummed slightly. Finally got this guy. Although she is very disdainful, she really despises the love of men and women in the world. But she has to admit that this is the fastest way for her to return to 9 heavens, and there is no one. Of course, while she despised and disdained, she couldn't believe it, her own heartbeat was suddenly accelerated like Ling Tian. After all, this is the first time she has been so close to a man. Even if I look back over the ages, I have never experienced it. When the soft feeling spread to the trembling heart. The cold is like waking up from a dream, slowly reducing the sneer on Chao's face. Muttered to himself softly as if waking up from a dream, this emperor. Is this farewell to singles today? Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully establishing a relationship with Empress Devil Dao Lang Han. Ding. The system prompts that your current Devil Dao female emperor's cold couple value reaches 5%. Ding. The system prompts that if the couple value reaches 100%, you can complete the destiny bond. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian was taken aback. He didn't expect that the couple value between himself and the cruel female devil would be 5%. Shouldn't it be said, this is a good start. Imagine carefully, this couple value seems to be equal to the task completion degree of the first main line task fetters. If the value of the couple with her reaches 100% within 3 years, you can complete the first main task of the system. If you can complete it, then you won't be punished by that terrible task. At the same time, you can also get mysterious rewards. Ling Tian thought about it beautifully. But here comes the problem. How ascension couple value is a key. Lens shift. Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa, stood there staring blankly at Ling Tian and Lang Han who hugged each other. His throat rolled. There was a bold idea in my heart. And when his footsteps just moved half an inch, 2 horrible breaths have already descended on him. Ji Yu Luokong's expression turned into a low voice and shouted. And Ling Tian has separated from Lang Han. He did not deliberately look at the cold expression. Lang Han did not look at him very tacitly. But undoubtedly, the heartbeats of the two after a game were abnormally fast. How? His Royal Highness wants to escape. Ling Tian stopped the thoughts that fluttered, let out a sigh of relief and locked his eyes mockingly on Ji Yu Luokong. Ling Tian, Yu Luokong gritted his teeth and popped 2 words from between his teeth. What do you want to do with him? Asked coldly. She has slowly calmed down the violent surging emotion just now, and her tone was very flat. Ha ha, Ling Tian smiled and responded. I wanted to have a dog since I was a kid. Now is the time. Oh, the cold and beautiful willow eyebrows frivolous. She has guessed what Ling Tian wants to do. Sure enough, when the black mist in Ling Tian's hands was surging, I saw a pitch black flute with black smoke slowly appearing. Ghost flute contemplates. What do you want? Yu Luokong raised his eyelids and roared. The moment he saw the flute, there was a very bad premonition in his heart. You will know soon. Ling Tian smiled slightly. Immediately afterwards, he slowly raised the soul flute and placed it on his lips. Then slowly closed his eyes. This moment, the flute sound has not appeared. But the whole world became depressed. Lang Han hugged his arms and looked at Ling Tian interestingly. A pair of beautiful eyes is full of expectation. She can feel at this moment, the moment Ling Tian picked up the soul flute. The temperament has undergone earth-shaking changes. And Yu Luokong looked at Ling Tian, who looked like this. I only feel that a faint sense of depression is born in his heart. Then it gradually expanded until it was hard to breathe under pressure, and his chest seemed to be pressed against a huge mountain. He wanted to turn around and flee immediately. However, I found that my entire body's profound energy had frozen. Own body was imprisoned in place, unable to move at all. And this is obviously a masterpiece of coldness. Zheng. A note sounded slowly, very lightly, as light as a breeze. However, it was just such a soft note that filled Yu Luokong's soul like a magic sound. The whole world seems to have become quiet, there is no more noise. Only the reverberation of that note was left, surrounded by his ears, long-lasting. Then another short and slight note sounded. Yu Luokong's eyes suddenly burst. He just felt that his own heart was pinched in his hands. The blood in the whole body started to flow backward. The rhythm of the notes slowly speeds up and becomes a piece. Converged into a sad and heartbreaking movement. Yu Luokong's legs trembled violently until every pore. His eyes gradually fade away. He just felt that the blood all over his body would burst out of blood vessels. The heart seems to be penetrated by countless sharp knives. He has a long mouth, but he can't make any sound. Then, he heard the very real and clear sound of the soul being pulled out of the body. It's worthy of the soul robbery. Coldly listening to the poignant movement hovering between heaven and earth. A little bit of brilliance sparkled in the beautiful eyes. She had heard broken soul song in Wongyuan before. At that time she already felt amazing enough. But today's soul tribulation song shocked her even more. The tune rang. You can rob the souls of others. Eternal life, his servant. So perfect. The cold red lips whispered softly. The movement is still going on. Yu Luokong's soul is slowly being stripped. A black stained slave mark formed in the deepest part of the soul. 1.5 minutes of movement. Finally sounded the final note. The moment the Dementor leaves the corner of Ling Tian's lips, the gloomy pressure between heaven and earth disappeared instantly. Slowly opened his eyes, Ling Tian quietly looked at Yu Luokong with his head down. Then a crisp system reminder sounded in his ear. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully robbing the soul. Ding. Congratulations to the host for harvesting a soul-stealing servant. Ding. Congratulations to the host's ascension proficiency to 5%. Hear this voice. Ling Tian slowly exhaled a mouthful of foul breath. Then he put away the dementing flute. Snapped his fingers with both hands. Awakened the soul-stealing seal in the depths of Yu Luokong's soul. Zheng. A black light flashed in Yu Luokong's eyes and suddenly raised his head. Then without hesitation, he knelt down in front of Ling Tian and shouted respectfully. The son of Hidden Sword Villa, Yu Luokong. Meet the master. Upon seeing this, Ling Tian smiled slightly. A panel appeared in front of me. Name, Yu Luokong. Identity, servant of the Jade Soul. The seal of the Jade Soul has awakened. Loyalty, 100 eternal life. Cultivation base, Holy Lord 1 realm. Talent, Ancient Jianshin, Kendo realm, into the micro realm. Congratulations, successful soul robbery. Lang Han smiled slightly at Ling Tian. You actually know the soul robbery. Ling Tian pretended to be shocked and looked towards the cold. Although he has established a relationship with Leng Han. But the place that should be performed is still to be performed. Don't be so strange. I am the descendant of the hidden world Immortal Gate. Why don't you know the trilogy of conquering souls? The cold and arrogant opening Ling Tian. She actually doesn't only know about the soul robbery. I also know that the horror of the soul robbing song lies in the person who is robbed of the soul. Before he was called Ling Tian's awakening soul seal, he didn't even know that he was robbed of soul. It can be said that I have my own complete soul and thought. In other words, Jiyu Luokong was still the enchanting godson of the Hidden Sword Villa from beginning to end. But if so, awakening the soul-catching seal, Jiyu Luokong will immediately become Ling Tian's most loyal slave. Even if Ling Tian asked Jiyu Luokong to kill his biological parents, he wouldn't have any hesitation. Moreover, the most exaggerated thing is that Ling Tian can change the memory of the soul robbed, and even the world view. This is, when the so-called robbery sounds, parents are in vain. Good. The godson of Hidden Sword Villa has been robbed of your soul and has become your servant. What are you going to do next? Coldly handed his hands and asked with interest. Of course it is to modify the memory. Ling Tian thought a little and then responded. Clever. A small smile of appreciation lifted up from the corner of his cold mouth. She knew that she killed Ji Yu Cheng today. That will inevitably cause an uproar in the Tibetan Sword Villa. Therefore, Ling Tian wants to temporarily stabilize the control situation of the Tibetan Sword Villa. Then the best way is to modify Jiyu Luokong's memory. Let Jiyu Luokong personally explain to the Tibetan Sword Villa the reason for Jiyu Zan's death. So, who in the Hidden Sword Villa would doubt His Highness the Son of God? Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled, and immediately began to revise the memory. Jiyu Luokong. Ling Tian called out. Owner. Jiyu Luokong knelt on the ground religiously. Respect Ling Tian in front of him as a supreme god. Ling Tian nodded, then pointed to the black mist. Urging the soul of the robbery, indifferently said. You will completely forget today's memory. And just remember one thing. That's because a mysterious killer used a sword to kill your uncle Jiyu Zan. Do you understand? Understood. Jiyu Luokong was startled. Then I saw a picture automatically appeared in the middle of his eyes. A strong man covered in black mist cut Ji Yu Cheng's body in half with a single sword. Then it turned into an aurora and went away. Good. Ling Tian nodded with satisfaction. Interesting. Coldly glanced at Ling Tian with admiration and then asked. What are you going to do with the 4 sword servants of Jiyu Luokong? Ling Tian turned his head and glanced at the 4 sword servants who were frozen in place by the cold ice, and said 2 words for a moment. Broken soul. Now, Jiyu Luokong has become something in his palm. And the 4 sword servants were just sealed by the cold. Life is alive. If the 4 swordsman is killed directly, then it is obviously a waste. And it may also cause unnecessary suspicion from others. So, use Broken Soul Song to break its soul. It is undoubtedly the best choice to make these 4 swordsmen become own tools. After all, Ling Tian took out the soul flute again. A shattered soul tune resounded between heaven and earth. The notes flutter, and the weird melody fluctuates. At this moment, the entire sky is full of yin and wind. Even the bright moon that hung in the sky and the earth slowly turned red. Click, click, click. The ice on the 4 sword servants was dissipated by the cold. As soon as they regained consciousness, they saw their godson kneeling in front of Ling Tian. However, there is no time for them to react. The sound of broken souls has already captured their last consciousness. Zheng, 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 zheng. The broken soul song ends. Ling Tian's mental energy is almost exhausted. But the sound of the system reminder from his ear shocked him. Ding. Congratulations to the host for taking the 4 swords of the Tibetan sword and serving the destiny value of 40,000 destiny. Ding. Congratulations to the host for using Broken Soul Song, harvesting 4 puppets, Broken Soul Song proficiency 10%. Comfortable. Ling Tian laughed out loud. I saw 4 more sword servants who had lost their souls and red eyes. There is no doubt that 4 more powerful men have been added to his puppet army. Moreover, the 4 sword servants of the Tibetan sword all possess the strength of the pinnacle of the king. This is a big help to him. From now on, you only need to follow Yu Luokong and obey him as usual. Ling Tian gave orders without hesitation. Yes. Sijian Shimaran responded, as if the tone of 4 puppets did not have the slightest emotion. Having said that, Ling Tian turned his gaze to Yu Luokong, and then urged the soul-catching seal to slowly order. Yu Luokong, you will wake up in 3 minutes. You will tell everything that happened today to the Tibetan Sword Villa. Then continue your trip to Wudu. Yes. Yu Luokong nodded religiously to Ling Tian. Very good. Then the next good show will be staged in Wudu. The cold light permeated Ling Tian's eyes. Later, he and Lang Han disappeared in the magical beasts forest. 3 minutes later, Yu Luokong, lying on the profound arc, woke up leisurely. Then that title-like memory made his heartbeat suddenly speed up. And he kept the ring shimmering. He hurriedly took out a sound transmission stone from Naji. At this moment, a lot of information has been accumulated in the sound transmission stone. LA, how are you doing? Los Angeles, what happened to you? Luo City, your 4th uncle's soul crystal is broken. His Royal Highness, who is the murderer? Yu Luokong rubbed his eyebrows, his mind couldn't help but a memory. The strong man hiding in the black mist, a bronze sword, the scene of a sword slashing through the sky is like a picture scroll replayed in his mind. He couldn't help but shudder, then suddenly picked up the sound transmission stone and shouted. Yes, the killer. He is covered in black mist, holding a bronze sword. It's as if the god of death has come to the world. Fortunately, his target is only the 4th uncle. Otherwise, even I will not be spared. Yu Luokong's horrified voice sounded in the assembly hall of the Hidden Sword Villa. All of a sudden, the chaos turned into a pot of porridge. It must be the underworld. The killer hidden in the black mist, there is no one except the underworld assassin. Not necessarily, it may be a net of heaven and earth, no survivors, it's not a joke. It's possible in the world, and their record in recent years is just as gorgeous. Who on earth has such a deep hatred with Yu Zan Elder? It must not be rogue cultivators, it must be a premeditated force. After all, the 4th child is the strength of the peak of the Holy Realm. Ordinary forces can't afford this price. Could it be Phoenix Shenzong? It may also be a consortium of the Feathered Empire. Just when the senior management of the Tibetan Sword Villa was arguing about it, the silver-haired, virtuous middle-aged man sitting first in the Parliament Hall spoke up. All right, don't mention it again. After I have asked the Tianji Pavilion, there will be a conclusion. This person is the current owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, Yu Qingshan's biological father Yu Qingshan. And the beautiful young woman in his 30s sitting next to him is Yu Luokong's mother, Roy. Yes, as long as Los Angeles is fine. The Roy heard his son's voice and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Iron, do you think we should let Los Angeles come back? After all, it's too unsafe outside. Yu Qingshan frowned his sword eyebrows and asked for his wife's meaning. Need not. The profound arc in Los Angeles has passed the magical beasts forest. You can reach Wudu within today. When you arrive at Wudu, Jun Xiaoyao will naturally keep him safe. Jan Weong is his obsession. We elders can't stop him from chasing dreams, can't we? The Roy said with a serious face. A rare smile appeared on his noble and beautiful face. Madam is right. I just don't know if this kid is capable of taking down Jun Xiaoyao's daughter. Yu Qingshan nodded and chuckled. Snort. When the Roy heard this, the smile on his pretty face was completely lost and snorted coldly. If Jun Xiaoyao is acquainted, he will obediently send his daughter to our son's bed. Now based on his situation, can there be any other way to break the situation besides marrying my Hidden Sword Villa? Moreover, that Yu Xian is still in Wudu. This time Los Angeles will definitely take that little fool back to the Hidden Sword Villa. What the lady said is extremely true. Yu Qingshan looked at his domineering wife with a submissive tone. The senior elders of the Hidden Sword Villa shook their heads and sighed when they saw this look of Yu Qingshan. As we all know, the wife of the owner of the Tibetan Sword Villa, Roy, comes from a powerful hidden world sect in the profound continent. Yu Qingshan can now sit on the position of the owner of the Hidden Sword Villa, almost entirely relying on the help of the forces behind his wife. Therefore, In today's Tibetan sword villa, the words of the Roy are almost equal to the imperial edict, and no one dares to contradict it. And whether it is sect leader Gu Qingshan of the Tibetan sword villa or the wife of the owner Roy, none of them know that their precious son has become someone's most loyal servant. Outside Wudu City, the commander-in-chief of the Janissaries led 3,000 janitors standing at a distance of 300 meters outside the teleportation array. His Royal Highness is about to arrive. Everyone get ready. Your Highness is finally here. Xiao Ce, one of the 4 military mansions, was also waiting outside the teleportation array with the core figures of the military mansion. When His Royal Highness arrives, I want to see if the Ling Tian child can still laugh. A cloud of haze and happiness passed across Ji Yu Lengxin's pretty face. Her brother Ji Yu Yan is still lying on the bed unconscious. She was expecting the Son of God to come and seek justice for them. Relax. As long as His Royal Highness arrives, Ling Tian will be dead. Xiao Ce stared at Ji Yu Lan, who was trembling all over, and comforted. Yes. Ji Yu Lan nodded earnestly. What kind of hate did she say afterwards? And that fool woman Ji Yu Xian. She has to pay too. Upon hearing this, Xiao Ce couldn't help looking at Ji Yu Xian's empty left arm and sighed slightly. At this moment, it's not just them. In Wudu City, the attention of countless cultivators is outside Wudu City. The arrival of the son of the Tibetan sword villa is a big event. His Royal Highness is coming soon, and Wudu may be in chaos. Hey, I don't know how young Master Ling Tian should respond. Young Master Ling Tian must already have a way to deal with it, otherwise he won't be so silent. You think too much. What else can he do besides silence, just waiting for death? But I heard that Ling Yao Miss is on the way back to Wudu with all his strength. I don't know if it will be too late. Even if Ling Yao Miss rushed back, young Master Ling Tian must be more ill-tempered. You are wrong. Young Master Ling Tian has been dormant for so many years. How dare you provoke the Tibetan sword villa if you are not sure? Humph. Let's wait and see. Just when there was a lot of discussion in Wudu City, there was a voice rushing into the sky outside Wudu City. Meet His Highness the Son of God. The voice fell. The tens of millions of cultivator in Wudu looked up and saw a huge profound arc coming from the clouds. And a figure standing on the bow. He stands with his hand. A pair of indifferent eyes look at the common people. Countless cultivators felt the feeling of a high mountain standing up at the moment they saw him. It is as if a mountain is pressed in my heart, and I will never be able to surpass it. Everyone said in amazement. The legendary His Royal Highness, he is here. In the palace of Wuji Hall. Father, my daughter doesn't want to marry Ji Yu Luokang. The eldest princess Jan Weong kneels in front of the great hall. A glamorous and peerless pretty face is full of determination. The cold voice resounded throughout the Wuji Hall. Jun Xiaoyao wears a black dragon robe. Standing on the top of the great hall with holding hands, the eyes of the sentient beings are only slightly soft when they look at their daughter. It took a long time before he spoke. Wei Young, you are the eldest princess. I should know that the situation of Emperor Father is very difficult now. 4 years ago our ancestor passed away immortally, our lineage can be said to be struggling. Without the help of the hidden sword villa, the emperor would not be able to secure the throne. Upon hearing this, Jun Weiyang suddenly raised his head and said with strong confidence. Father, give me time. Wei Young will definitely be able to surpass our ancestors. There is no need for help from outsiders at all. Jun Xiaoyao nodded and said, I believe you. With your talent and potential, it will be a matter of time before you surpass your ancestors. But, it takes time. The thing that Emperor Father lacks most is time. When Jun Weiyang heard this, she bit her red lips like a rose and said, 3 years. Father, please give Wei Young 3 years. 3 years later, Wei Young promises that our line will no longer be restricted to anyone. After a long time, Jun Xiaoyao sighed and said, Ah, your mind, the emperor, already knows. Retreat now. Jun Weiyang's beautiful eyes looked at Jun Xiaoyao in a daze and asked, Father, so what do you mean? Ha ha, Jun Xiaoyao responded with a smile. Daughter doesn't want to marry. My father, can I still force my daughter to marry me? Upon hearing this, Jun Weiyang's glamorous and noble pretty face lifted up a touching smile. Thank you, father. Heard this, she was very happy. She knew that her father was the best father in the world. Never force her to do anything she doesn't want to do. After getting a satisfactory answer, she also turned around and left the Wuji temple contentedly. What she didn't expect was, after she left, a shadow appeared on the spot where she stood before. Your Majesty, the princess doesn't want to marry, right? A soft voice sounded. The moonlight fell, and a man with an unusually pale face in a purple golden Meng robe walked out of the shadows. He is the June Martial God Kingdom. Shicheng Dutong is also one of the top 10 powerhouses in the June Martial God Kingdom. Yu Tianchen. Snort. Jun Xiaoyao coldly snorted. Of course she would not marry. So, we have to use some special methods. What does the Emperor want you to find? Ha ha ha. Yu Tianchen smiled and immediately took out a crystal bottle from Na Ring. There was a drop of blood stained with flames. Your Majesty, this is the blood of the horned dragon you want. Just give this drop of blood to Her Royal Highness. Then send Her Royal Highness to the bed of God's son Ji Yu Luokong. So, he. Tibetan Sword Villa and the Martial Emperor's room can naturally be married forever, and at the same time have a good relationship for 100 years. In this way, even the National Guardian can't shake your throne at all. Hearing that, Jun Xiaoyao took the crystal bottle. A pair of eagle-like eyes looked at the drop of dragon blood obsessively. This is the blood of the legendary horned dragon, the world's #1. Interesting, Yu Huatian suddenly said. Your Majesty, are you willing to give your Royal Highness to Ji Yu Luokong like this? Snort. Jun Xiaoyao hummed softly. Nonsense. A daughter can get back 100 or even 1,000 times return. Don't you think it's worth it? Yu Huatian bowed after hearing the words. Your Majesty is wise. Ha ha. Jun Xiaoyao smiled and waved his hand. All right, go and invite the son of God Ji Yu Luokong to the Wuji temple. Some plans, let him know in advance. Yes, Yu Huatian took the order and turned and left the Wuji hall. And Jun Xiaoyao looked at the blood of the horned dragon in the crystal bottle. The more he looked, more and more fascinated. I couldn't look away for a while. The bright moonlight pours down. The faint smile at the corner of his mouth and the unspeakable greed in his eyes shine through. The bright moon is in the sky, and the stars are shining. Wudu, known as the city that never sleeps, is still hot and brightly lit tonight. All major restaurants, all streets Taoist is full of trouble. The coming of the son of God Ji Yu Luokong today caused a great sensation. Countless people are amazed at Ji Yu Luokong's banal posture. He really deserves the name of his son of God. It's just that no one knows. They regard it as Diva's godson of the Tibetan Sword Villa Ji Yu Luokong. At this moment, kneeling in front of a person in a humble posture that is almost an ant. 5 body cast, and the eyes are full of piety, like the supreme God serving him. Shen's military mansion, in the Peach Blossom Court. Ling Tian looked at Ji Yu Luokong who was kneeling at his feet and asked interestingly. You mean, Jun Xiaoyao will use the blood of the horned dragon to calculate his own daughter Jan Weong? When Ji Yu Luokong heard this, he nodded and said, after today's wind banquet, Jun Xiaoyao found me. He said he prepared a big gift for me. And this big gift is her daughter Jan Weong. He hopes that Kangjian Villa can make the best of the Qin and Jin dynasties with his martial emperor room forever. I see. This is interesting. Ling Tian tapped the stone table lightly with her fingers. A gleam of light flickered in her eyes. Now that there is Ji Yu Luokong as a tool man, he is equivalent to sharing information with Tibetan Sword Villa. So he knew everything about Jun Xiaoyao at this moment. It seems that the pressure on him from within Hu Guozong is not small. Otherwise, how could he send his daughter Jan Weong as a gift? Ling Tian sneered, and then asked, what else did Jun Xiaoyao say? Ji Yu Luokong thought about repeating the words without falling a word. He said that his daughter not only has the beauty of 9 heavens. Moreover, he has the legendary 9 orifice exquisite heart. If anyone gets her daughter, he can get the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices protected by heavenly Tao, who possesses the supreme fortune. He hopes to use Jan Weong in exchange for more resources and assistance from the Hidden Sword Villa. What? Zhu Chao Linglongshin. Ling Tian heard this name. There was a sudden jump in my heart. Immediately afterwards, he immediately called out the handbook for unblocking the evil mind body of the world. The second stage of the 7 world defying states, Burning God. Burning God. realm that will be reached after the second smelting of the power of the gods and demons. Active. Open the Burning God realm, you can instantly obtain Burning God 100 times the amount of violent violence. Unblocking conditions. The exquisite primordial yin of Juqiao Linglongshin or the first blood of Juqiao Linglongshin. Suggestion. Reopen the host in the Holy Lord realm. There is no doubt that the Burning God realm pass can instantly make Ling Tian's power ascension 100 times, the horror is extreme. As for unblocking conditions. Ling Tian glanced at the conditions for unblocking the second realm. I couldn't help but spread out my hands. This is too lucky. In fact, when I saw this unblocking condition at the beginning, he almost scolded, because in the setting of God and Demon, the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices is the super physique sheltered by heavenly Tao. Those who can possess the Linglong heart of 9 orifices will be born on Linglong minor world. Generally, people with the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices will have a high probability of standing on the top of 9 heavens. No one can appear for tens of thousands of years. Ling Tian remembers that when he tested the battle between gods and demons in the Shinto camp, there is a fairy leader with an exquisite heart of 9 orifices. That ostentation can be said to be surrounded by all gods, and it is the object of countless giants chasing. After all, once a woman with an exquisite heart of 9 orifices becomes a wife, then after getting married, he will naturally get his exquisite vitality in achievement supreme chaos saint. Although, in the end, the Linglong fairy was cold and severed by the big demon. A palm exploded its 9-aperture exquisite heart. The last fallen gods and demons battlefield. However, I have to admit that she still left a strong mark in the history of God and Demon. Originally, he was still worried where to find Juqiao Linglongshin. As a result, I didn't expect to be far away in the sky, close in front of my eyes. That's right. Jun Xiaoyao wants to send Jan Weong to Jiyu Luokang. This is equivalent to saying, if done properly, that is to own the 9-aperture exquisite heart. Just as Ling Tian's thoughts flew, no one found out. In the depths of the Taoyuan, under the peach tree, relying on a devil-like enchanting figure. 9 orifices Linglong heart, is that kind of waste physique also worth the effort? If you can say such arrogant words, you don't have to think about it. It can only be the cold devil. Looking at the look of this fellow Ling Tian, could it be that he had moved his mind to Juqiao Linglong with his seat behind his back? Men are really not good things. Coldly hugged his hands proudly on his chest and sneered. At the same time, a pair of cold eyes flashed with dangerous light. Her posture may seem to outsiders to be jealous of her girlfriend. However, she is actually as cold as her, but not jealous. She is worrying about own assets. That is Ling Tian. Contaminated by other women. But, if you think about it, her beautiful eyes suddenly lit up and she muttered to herself. And many more. 9-aperture Linglong Shin is a physique protected by heavenly Tao. If Ling Tian gets its exquisite Yuan Yin, that would be a great thing. After the incident, his cultivation base and combat power will definitely be qualitatively overtaken. That's also a good thing for this seat. That's right, as Ling Tian's fetters. It is undoubtedly the biggest beneficiary after Ling Tian's strength ascension. The stronger Ling Tian is, the greater the ascension to her will be when the time comes to complete the fetters of the destiny. And in her plan, she hopes to complete the fetters of destiny when Ling Tian's cultivation base reaches the Shenshuan realm. And this, Juqiao Linglongshin will undoubtedly give her an excellent help and shorten the budget time. But here comes the problem. How can this guy reach a connected connection with this guy before he reaches the profound realm? A touch of confusion flashed in the cold beautiful eyes. On war, on murder, on genocide. She is a professional. But on matters between men and women, there really was a blank in her mind. I don't have a clue at all. Do you really want to have a love with him? The cold and beautiful Lu Mei whispered to himself. I didn't notice at all. Ling Tian's expression froze. Ding. The system prompts that the value of the cold couple between the host and the devil Dao is reduced to 4%. Ding. The system prompts that the host and the devil Dao female emperor's cold couple value is reduced ascending to 6%. This female demon is eavesdropping again. Ling Tian suddenly caught a glimpse of that beautiful shadow under the peach tree, and his heart couldn't help but jump. After returning to Wudu, Lang Han threw himself a sound transmission jade and disappeared. And if it wasn't for the system prompt, he really couldn't find the cold. But what did I do? This couple's value drops first and then rises in just a few breaths. Master, do you want your subordinates to help you get Jan Weong? Ji Yu Luokong whispered. No need. I have a girlfriend. Ling Tian said righteously and dubiously. What? When Lang Han heard this, a sullen color flashed on a beautiful face. Can't help but scold. What the hell is this unbelievable guy in his mind? Don't even eat the fat in your mouth. It's so stupid to get home. After all, her chest rises sharply. Obviously, Ling Tian was very angry. Coldly rubbed his eyebrows and suddenly thought of something. Red lips whispered to himself. This fool is stupid. This seat can't let him go crazy. This Jan Weong, he has to eat if he doesn't eat. Humph, never let him ruin this seat's revenge plan. After all, she turned and left. Although she has now established a relationship with Ling Tian. But in her world, there is still no clear concept of love. Moreover, her desire for revenge is stronger than anything else. Ling Tian is not so much a lover to her at this moment. Rather, it is a precious humanoid asset. Ding. The system prompts that the value of the cold couple between the host and Devil Dao has dropped to 5%. Here another system prompt. Ling Tian is stupid. Why did it fall again? Her boyfriend's refusal to righteously refuse. Shouldn't the couple value at this time be ascending? At this moment, he was really dumbfounded. Without knowing it, Lang Han has already planned a plan against him. How to eat Jan Weong's evil plan. Ling Tian could not help but breathe a sigh of relief when seeing Lang Han leave. Then hurriedly asked in his mind. System, how on earth can ascension and the cold couple be worth? Ding. The system prompts that the host only needs to do some things that couples should do with Langan to warm up the relationship. Hearing this, Ling Tian touched his chin and murmured. Between couples, what to do? Could it be that they hug and hug high? Thinking of this, Ling Tian couldn't help but fill in the picture of doing these things coldly with the big demon. He suddenly shivered and said helplessly. Fuck me. How can you do that with the system? Before you tell me to do these things, you won't score anyone. Know that the girlfriends of other people's homes are gentle like water, smiling like flowers. But my girlfriend is the ultimate devil who kills people like numb hands, and the bloody sea of corpses at her feet. You told me to hug her. Do you want me to die? There was a moment of silence. Then the system prompt sounded. Ding. The system prompts that if the host and the Devil Dao female emperor's cold couple value reaches 10%, then the host will get an exclusive couple skill auditory hallucinations. Hearing hallucinations. Exclusive couple skills, the host can listen to the cold heart. This is almost the same. Ling Tian slowly breathed a sigh of relief. The cold personality is moody, and his heart is like a needle in the sea. No one can know what she is thinking. If you don't understand anything, just do it. Let alone complete the main task in 3 years. I am afraid that there will be no drama for 30 years or even 300 years. But, if now I work hard to make the couple value reach 10% so as to obtain the couple skills that can eavesdrop on each other's voice. From then on, I can control her heart's movements at any time. This proper magical skill. Joke. On the road of love, you can hear each other's voice. Isn't it? Knowing oneself, knowing the enemy and winning every battle. Ling Tian took a breath and lifted a relieved smile on his face. Now, the almost impossible task has finally seen a glimmer of light. It's late. Ling Tian turned to Ji Yu Luokong, who was still kneeling at his feet, and asked. When is Martial Emperor going to act? When Ji Yu Luokong heard this, he immediately responded. 3 days later, the birthday of the eldest princess Jan Weong. I see. Ling Tian nodded. If it weren't for Ji Yu Luokong's reminder. He has forgotten that after 3 days it will be Jan Weong's 23-year-old birthday. After thinking about it for a moment, the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. A simple plan is already clear. Then he waved his hand. Retreat. Yes. Ji Yu Luokong received the order. He didn't hesitate to turn around and disappear into the night. And when he returned to the gate of the 10,000 Sword Army Palace, the black light in his eyes disappeared. At the same time, the meeting with Ling Tian in the Shen's army mansion was automatically deleted in my mind. A handsome face returned to its original coldness. Ha ha ha. Ji Yu Luokong felt the cold wind blowing at night. My heart was full of excitement and joy, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. At this moment in his memory, there is no such thing as seeing Ling Tian at all. And when he thought of what the martial emperor said to him, he can't wait for time to pass faster. After 3 days, this godson will be able to get Jan Weong completely. Ha ha ha, martial emperor, this old thing, is really familiar. It's just that this godson didn't expect Jan Weong to still possess the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. Ha ha ha, this is really an unexpected gain. After all, a wicked smile appeared on his face. Then he walked into the 10,000 Swords military mansion leisurely with his hands. Tianyi Army Mansion. Cold and cold, a seat of Shui sat upstairs in Wangyu. At this moment, she has restored Yi Qingluo's face. Glamorous and noble, Yuehan called coldly. I saw a young girl immediately appeared in the Wangyu Tower. What's the command of the palace lord? Yuehan quietly knelt on the ground and waited for the cold command. Lang Hanyu lightly touched the mahogany table, then red lips lightly said, "Go to the Tianyi treasure house, and help me get a love flower." What? Yu Han suddenly raised her head and looked at her palace master in shock. Then she stuttered and confirmed again. "Palace lord, excuse me, are you talking about love flowers? How? Any questions?" Lengen frowned, and his voice was faintly cold. No problem." Yuehan shuddered when he heard the words, and immediately turned and ran towards Tianyi treasure. After a while, Yuehan returned to Wangyuelu with a scarlet flower that was extremely strange, like a blood demon. "House President, this is the love flower you want." After all, Yuehan handed the love flower to Lang Han. Good," coldly looking at the strange red flower in his hand. The red lips, which resembled a knife-edge rose, made a shallow arc. In the legend, the love flower, a flower blooms in a day, it is better than a bridal flower and candle 300 times. I don't know if this sentence is true or false. Hearing that, Yuehan lowered her head and her beautiful face was as red as blood. As a disciple of the Misty Ice Palace, how can she not know what effect the love flower has? But she didn't dare to respond, because it was too shameful. But after hesitating again and again, she still plucked up the courage to ask. "Palace master, don't blame Yuehan for talking. What do you want this love flower for, what?" Lang Han heard this and looked at Yuehan interestingly. She could see how much courage this little girl had gathered before daring to ask her this question. The cold and beautiful willow eyebrows frivolous, then the corners of his lips bend slightly and his red lips slightly open. "Certainly, it's for a man." Yu Han suddenly raised her head and looked at her palace lord. A pair of beautiful eyes as full of look of disbelief. Rolling throat and loss of speech. Palace lord, it turned out to be, for a man. After all, a blush spread from her neck to her earlobe. Her view of the world seems to be broken. 3 days passed in a hurry. The 23rd birthday of the eldest princess Jan Weong is officially here. The night falls, and the bright moon is in the sky. There are millions of lights in Wudu, the city that never sleeps, and the city is full of flowers, and it is very lively. The restaurants in Wudu are full. Countless cultivators and people raised their glasses to the direction of the palace as usual, celebrating the birthday of the princess together. Inside the Shen's military mansion, Ling Tian slowly opened her eyes and looked at the bright moonlight, whispering, "It's time." After that, he got up and put on the dark night cloak and stepped out of the Shen's military mansion. Soon, Ling Tian came outside the magnificent, luxurious and brilliantly lit palace. Look away. The princes and nobles who are rarely seen on weekdays are queuing to enter. And Ling Tian has a noble status as the young palace master of the Shen's military mansion. Directly past the crowd, and walked towards the palace. At the same time, I kept thinking about the information about the eldest princess Jan Weong in my mind. Jan Weong, Junwu is the most beautiful, and his famous name has spread throughout the 10 kingdoms of Shenshuan. Countless Tianzhao, in order to see her, he did not hesitate to go to the mountains and seas. There are countless cultivators who have been dreaming and lost their minds only because they have met her once. In June martial god, she is supported by countless Junwu people and cultivators. It is said that she will become the next female Emperor Junwu. This is the well-known information of the entire profound God continent. However, let Ling Tian summarize. Her scheming is extremely deep. Great ambition. Is an exquisite egoist. After 10 years of painstaking management, he won the hearts of the people, just to pave the way for his future ascendance to the throne. To describe her as femme fatale is the most suitable. But the only person she has no defense against is her father Jun Martial Emperor Xiaoyao. Thought of here, Ling Tian laughed mockingly. Jan Weong's birthday banquet is set up in the Tianqi Temple. Tianchong Hall, as a banquet venue specially set up for the Martial Emperor's room, is extremely luxurious. The magnificent stone pillars of the divine phoenix are entrenched, and the red carpet covers the entire great hall. The precious moon god stone releases a brilliant and beautiful light, shining on the entire heavenly dome hall. At this moment, the heavenly dome hall is already full of princes and nobles from the kingdom of martial god. Every powerful person is eagerly talking. The beautiful maids carried their hip flasks and shuttled through the crowd like butterflies, full of vitality. And when Ling Tian stepped into the Tianqi temple, the entire Tianchong temple is suddenly quiet. Everyone's eyes swept over. Then there were whispers in the whole sky hall. Palace Master Shens is here. The young palace master's scheming is so deep that it is true that the old man has only seen it in his life. That's right. For 10 years, the cultivation base is so powerful. Not only that, his courage is the only thing an old man sees in his life. Isn't it? Even the direct disciple of the Tibetan sword villa is really a waste of it. Tisk tusk tusk. His Royal Highness the son of Hidden Sword Villa will also come today. God knows what kind of fierce conflict will happen next time. It's not good to say. It's not good to say. Ling Tian ignored all kinds of eyes. He walked straight into the Tianchong temple and sat in a position exclusively reserved for Shen's military mansion. Brother Ling Tian, I haven't seen you in a few days. Your style is still the same. Li Ziyang, young master of the Flame Army Mansion, arched his cupped hands to Ling Tian. Brother Ziyang, too much praise. Ling Tian smiled slightly, there was no emotional fluctuation in the bottom of his eyes. Now, Brother Ling's name has spread throughout the martial god country. Even the goddess of the Phoenix God sect, pays much attention to you. Li Ziyang whispered, Your Highness the goddess. Ling Tian frowned. The goddess Feng Qingcheng of Phoenix Shenzong and Ji Yu Luokong, the goddess of Tibetan Sword Villa, are also known as the peerless twins of the martial god kingdom. It's just that he didn't expect that the battle of the little gods arena would attract her attention. Brother Ling, Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa, will also come. When the time comes, you can keep a low profile for the time being. After all, today is the birthday of Her Royal Highness Princess, he shouldn't go too far. Li Ziyang reminded in a low voice. He just finished speaking. I only heard the guards guarding the Tianqi temple shouting. His Royal Highness of the Hidden Sword Villa and the young Master Xiao Ci of the 10,000 Swords Army Mansion arrived. After hearing the words, everyone got up to face the door and salute. At this time, I saw Ji Yu Luokong and Xiao Ci, the young master of the 10,000 Swords Army Mansion, enter the arena first. And behind him are Ji Yu Luokong's 4 sword servants. As soon as they enter, Zheng swords are circulating in the entire Tianchong temple. No one dared to look at the places where the 4 great sword servants' sharp eyes were as sharp as souls, they lowered their heads. And Ji Yu Luokong held his hand down, sitting in a high position with a calm smile on his face under the eyes of the public. After he walked into the Tianchong hall, he just glanced at Ling Tian casually. There is no sorrow or joy in the eyes, only the upper persons overlooking. And Xiao Ci next to him is full of mockery and playfulness and deep pity. In the eyes of outsiders, Ji Yu Luokong did not put Ling Tian to put in one's eyes at all. Brother Ling, you have to be careful from now on. Li Ziyang whispered quietly. It's okay. Ling Tian frowned, her expression unchanged. You need to know the power of the soul robbery is here. At this moment, Ji Yu Luokong didn't know that he had been robbed. Moreover, the soul-robbing seal was not activated, so his attitude was very normal. Your Majesty Martial Emperor is here. His Royal Highness is here. The voice falls. I saw a black dragon robe, Jun Xiaoyao slowly entering the venue. And behind him was a tall and handsome young man. There is no doubt that this is the crown prince of the martial god kingdom, King's Landing. Meet your majesty, martial emperor. Everyone got up to meet the ruler of the martial god kingdom. When I met the martial emperor, there was a deep chill in Ling Tian's eyes. This emperor, martial emperor, is the one who will kill in his main mission. All right, let's be flat, everyone. Today is Wei Yong's birthday, everyone can relax. Martial emperor smiled and waved his hand and said. No one noticed, his eyes glanced at Ling Tian. There was a deep killing intent flashing through his eyes. In his eyes, Ling Tian is also a mortal person. Yes, your majesty. Everyone got up. The atmosphere in the Tianchong Hall became warm again. And at this moment, a beautiful shadow slowly fell into the top of the sky. She wears a moon-white streamer long skirt, with a long skirt flickering. Such as slowly walking out of the middle of the month. She looks like a fairy, like a dream. The skin is like flawless mutton fat white jade, like frost and snow in winter with the sun shining brightly. Her face seemed to be devoted to all the hard work and care of heaven, and even the most gorgeous rhetoric in the world could not interpret even the half of the charm. The moment she walked out, if there was an extremely bright and dazzling glow in everyone's pupils, the whole world became exceptionally bright. Worthy of it, she truly deserves to be unparalleled in the world, and she is the most beautiful in Junwu. Your Royal Highness, Jan Weong is here. Looking at her, everyone's eyes were slightly lost. Even if it's not the first time someone has seen her. But he was still shocked and speechless. And under the lens shift, Ling Tian's face was condensed, looking at Jan Weong with dim eyes, frowning. After a few breaths, he muttered to himself slowly and solemnly. There is something wrong with this woman. After Ling Tian came to this fantasy world, this is the first time he saw Jan Weong. And this first glance gave him the feeling that besides being so amazing, there was danger. Extremely dangerous. So the eyes flicker. Ling Tian chose to immediately open the eyes of insight and locked Jan Weong. Name: Jan Weong. Identity: June Martial God Kingdom Princess. Age: 20 years old. Hidden identity: cultivation base. Physique: bloodline. Faction: short-term target. Ascend to the martial god position. Height: 170 centimeters. Measures: 87.54/85 of a centimeter. Destiny value potential: 1 million. Not available for viewing more temporarily. Ling Tian looked at Jan Weiyang's information panel and couldn't help being a little shocked. Hide identity, cultivation base, physical blood. Belong to the camp. He could not perceive these four most important information at all. You know, this is the first time this happened after he gained insight. And based on the known information, Jan Weiyang's destiny potential has reached 1 million points. You know that Ji Yuxian, the daughter of the destiny who has the supreme bone, only has 200,000 points. Her destiny potential turned out to be 5 times that of Ji Yuxian. It seems that there is a big problem with this woman's true identity. Ling Tian's heartbeat suddenly accelerated and whispered. At this moment, his thoughts are spinning. Jan Weiyong has a hidden identity. It just proves that she is not just the eldest princess of the kingdom of martial god. She is very likely to be the same as Leng Han, a rebirth. Or like yourself, a traverser. If neither, then the most likely one is the samsara in the god world. Or the reincarnation of a certain emperor. After all, it is speculated based on her potential of 1 million destiny. Jan Weiyong's hidden true identity is absolutely terrifying. But the words come back. No matter how horrible she is, can she be colder? Ling Tian frowned slightly. You know, even the Empress Devil Dao is cold and he can't hide his own eyes of insight. Will her true identity be more terrifying than cold? Thought of here. Ling Tian shook his head. It's more terrifying than the ultimate villain big boss that has suppressed Shinto for thousands of years. This is obviously unlikely. So what caused her to escape the eye of insight? When Ling Tian's thoughts stopped here a little distressed, the system reminder sounded in his mind. Ding. The system prompts that the person of the host's insight owns the Divine Phoenix Heavenly Secret Jade and has blocked the Heavenly Secret, so no more information can be viewed for the time being. Ding. The system prompts that the person of the host's insight, wearing a Luna streamer skirt, has blocked the secret of heaven, so no more information can be viewed temporarily. Listen to the sound of the system prompt. Ling Tian's expression suddenly stagnated. Then his eyes were firmly locked on Jan Weong's elegant and noble streamer moon skirt. And the crystal-clear jade pendant engraved with 9 heavens divine phoenix around the waist. It turned out to be the moon god streamer skirt and the divine phoenix heavenly jade. Ling Tian nodded and said in his heart. It turned out that Jan Weong actually had 2 sacred objects that shielded the secrets of heaven. No wonder you can't hide yourself in the eyes of insight. However, at this moment, he is even more curious about Jan Weong's mysterious identity. Afterwards, Ling Tian suddenly thought of something and asked in his mind. The system, if I take off her Tianjiu, can I get some insight into the information? The voice fell, the voice of the system came from Ling Tian's ear. Ding. If the host removes the Divine Phoenix Heavenly Secret Jade, you can gain insight into 50% of its character information. Ding. If the host takes off the Moon God Streamer skirt, he can gain insight into 50% of the character information. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian nodded. In front of so many people, Tuoyan Weiyang's clothes seem to be a bit difficult now. However, it is not difficult to remove her secret jade. Thoughts are turning. Ling Tian's mouth lifted slightly, staring at Jan Weiyang's pretty face tightly and muttering to herself. Maybe there is a way. Young Master Ling Tian, is there anything on the face of this palace? It's worth your staring so much. Jan Weiyang gritted his silver teeth and asked. With so many people present, no one dared to look at her presumptuously like Ling Tian. Even Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Zhangjian Villa, has his own identity and did not follow. However, Ling Tian is different. Ling Tian's gaze was on her from beginning to end. Even, for a moment, she felt that Ling Tian's eyes would strip her naked. So she didn't leave a face for Ling Tian at all, and directly questioned in public. Hearing that, Ling Tian came back to his senses. Then he shrugged and said with a smile on his face. His Royal Highness, I found something on your face. Jan Weiyang frowned upon hearing this. Everyone looked at Jan Weiyang's pretty and unparalleled face. But no matter how they looked left and right, they found no abnormalities. The beauty is still the same. Sitting in a high position, Martial Emperor also held his arms and looked at Ling Tian interestingly. Is there, what? Jan Weiyang frowned and asked. Actually it's nothing. That's a bit glamorous. Ling Tian spread his hands. The face was not red and the heart was not beating, and said the earthy love words before crossing forehead. When everyone heard the words, there was a flash of embarrassment on their faces. I thought, this mysterious young palace master of the Shent's army mansion. Talking is very unique, and many of the girls at the banquet all blushed pretty. And I used my peripheral vision to look at Ling Tian, shouting in my heart not to be serious. Thank you Lord Ling Tian for the compliment. But please let young Master Ling Tian respect yourself. Jan Weiyang speaks at will. There is no wave of ups and downs in the eyes. See Ling Tian again. She found that she couldn't see through this man who had been extremely humble in front of her. Okay, everyone is seated. Martial Emperor Xiaoyao waved his hand. Ended the weird atmosphere in the field. Today is Wei Yang's birthday, so please don't be cautious and have fun. Jan Weiyang also spoke very grandiosely. When the voice fell, thousands of fireworks bloom in Wudu City, rendering the night sky extremely beautiful in an instant. Thousands of people are lost in that flourishing fireworks. The dinner begins, singing and dancing erupt. There was a lively and peaceful scene in the entire Tianchong temple. At this time, Prince Junlin got up and walked to Jan Weiyang and said, Wei Young little sister, today is your birthday. Brother specially prepared a birthday gift for you. After all, there was a flash of light in his hand. A wooden box appeared in his hands. Opening the wooden box, I saw a Longan-like medicine pill lying quietly in the box. Zhu Yan Dan. Big brother is interested. Jan Weiyang smiled slightly. One pill for retaining beauty can maintain its appearance for 30 years. It's the medicine pill that women in the profound realm dream of. And Zhu Yan Dan is priceless and extremely precious. Little sister is happy. Jun Lin nodded and then stepped back. With the debut of the prince, every powerful person began to show his own gifts. After all, this is a good opportunity to show up in front of the martial emperor and the princess, no one wants to miss it. Mr. Xie from the criminal department, presenting a piece of warm fragrant jade. Master Zhou of the military department, a gift of a feathered godly garment. Leader Li, commander of the Imperial Guard, presents a piece of soft golden silk armor. Palace Master Xiao Ce of the 10,000 Swords Army Palace, presenting a snake eyebrow bronze fish. Palace Master Li Ziyang of the Flame Army Mansion, presenting a Liyang God Pill. Many dignitaries gave Jan Weong birthday gifts one after another. But everyone knows that the real big shot hasn't taken a shot yet. At this time, Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa, stood up. Everyone retreated. He walked leisurely in front of Jan Weong and said, "Weong, long time no see." When Jan Weong heard this, his expression was very indifferent and replied, "His Royal Highness, long time no see." Ha ha. Ji Yu Luokong smiled slightly and said, "Guess, what birthday gift will I give you today?" Jan Weong said without hesitation, "Sword." The voice falls. Ji Yu Luokong's smile gradually deepened. "As expected of you." After all, a light flashed in his hand and a 7-foot green sword appeared in his hand. The moment this sword appeared, there was a buzzing sound of swords in the entire Tianchong Hall. At the same time, the sword body is shining with a bit of moonlight, radiant, beautiful and flawless. The name of this sword is Moonlight. It means that you, Jan Weong, will always be the white moonlight of my Ji Yu Luokong. Ji Yu Luokong spoke quietly and affectionately. His voice was not loud, but it shocked everyone's hearts. Many daughters of the rich and powerful, when they heard this confession, their hearts were throbbing. The godchild in white, the young sword fairy. Only for one person, infatuated for 10 years. This is simply the dream of countless girls. And Ling Tian on the side looked at Ji Yu Luokong interestingly. This look, this family, also has the talent of peerless kendo practice. Properly fantasy-like super rich and handsome. It's just a pity. Under the robbery of the soul, he will eventually become a slave. Thank you for the gift from His Highness the Son of God. It's just Weong, I dare not be it. Jan Weong said softly. Ha ha. Ji Yu Luokong smiled and said, "Why don't you dare to be? Furthermore, who doesn't know that you Jan Weong is the white moonlight of Ji Yu Luokong in this world? Who would dare to say one more thing that is not good?" When everyone heard this, their hearts were shocked. His Highness the Son of God of the Xindao Zhangjian Villa is so domineering. At this moment, Martial Emperor Xiaoyao also spoke. "Weong, you will accept the love of Lord Luokong. This is just a birthday gift, not a wedding, what do you think?" Since Zhang Xiaoyao has spoken, Jan Weong is naturally not good at saying anything. Had to accept. And at this moment, among the dignitaries of the entire Tianchong Temple, only one person did not give a gift. That is Ling Tian. Many people have noticed this. But not many dared to speak out in public. This does not include Xiao Ce, the young master of the Wanjian Army Mansion. Young Master Ling, everyone has prepared a gift for Her Royal Highness Princess Long. Aren't you prepared? This is the respect of the Shen's military mansion to the royal family. Xiao Ce suddenly opened his mouth and his tone was full of playfulness. After all, everyone's eyes were put on Ling Tian together. Ling Tian heard the words and looked at Xiao Ce indifferently. And it was this look that directly made Xiao Seru fall into the ice cave. At this time, Jan Weong said, "It's okay. Young Master Ling Tian is already very satisfied when he can come to Weong. Why bother to prepare for the birthday gift?" The voice falls. Ling Tian stood up and said with a smile, "Today is the birthday of the eldest princess. It is also right to prepare for the princess's lifetime. It's just that Ling Tian is not valuable, but it comes from the sincerity." He did prepare a birthday gift for Jan Weong before. But just after he learned that Jan Weong had 2 holy artifacts that shielded the secrets of heaven, he changed his mind. He decided to change the birthday gift for one. For another, a genuine gift. Humph, just the clown. Ji Yu Luokong snorted and looked at Ling Tian with disdain. As soon as his Moonlight Divine Sword came out, all the treasures were set off dull and dull. Now Ling Tian can only become a foil even if he takes the birthday gift. Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled and then walked towards Jan Weong in the eyes of everyone's surprise. "I don't know what Lord Ling Tian's gift is." Jan Weong stood up, looked at Ling Tian who had come in front of her and asked. The voice falls. Ling Tian looked at Jan Weong quietly. Then he boldly reached out and held Jan Weong's wrist. You. Jan Weong's pretty face changed, just spit out a word. I saw. Ling Tian tugged hard. He even directly took Jan Weong into On's arms in public. What? Jan Weong exclaimed. She did not expect Ling Tian to be so bold. I dared to embrace her in my arms. The man's breath dedicated to Ling Tian poured into her nose. Her mind went blank for a moment. For a while, I forgot to push Ling Tian away. The atmosphere in the Great Hall was silent for a few seconds. Then there was an angry shout. Presumptuous. Bold. Let go of your Royal Highness. Ling Tian, do you want to die? Countless people glared at Ling Tian, especially Ji-Yu Luokong. At this moment, his angry fingertips trembled. I can't wait to cut Ling Tian 1,000 swords. For so many years, he has not even touched a finger of Jan Weong. Now, Ling Tian has such a close contact with her. He really couldn't bear it. If not, this is the chassis belonging to the Martial Emperor room. He had already shot Ling Tian. And in this chaos, no one noticed. When Ling Tian was holding Jan Weong, a hand has quietly torn the divine phoenix heavenly jade from his waist. Name: Jan Weong. Identity: June Martial God Kingdom Princess. Age: 20 years old. Hidden identity: Cultivation base: Holy Lord 3 Realms. Physique: Bloodline. Faction: Shinto faction. Ambition: Ascend to the martial god position. Height: 170 centimeters. Measures: 87 54 85ths of a centimeter. Destiny value potential: 1 million. Not available for viewing more temporarily. When the half-unlocked information panel appeared in front of you, Ling Tian let go of Jan Weong very calmly. Then he looked inexplicably at the dumbfounded people at the moment and said, "Didn't I say it? Today's gift to the eldest princess is a big hug from my son, Jan Weong." A group of dignitaries onlookers, fanatic. Ji-Yu Luokong, asshole. She can tolerate which is unbearable. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao. Chapter 41. How? Is the princess dissatisfied with my gift? Ling Tian looked at Jan Weong leisurely and asked. Hearing that, Jan Weong's chest rises violently. She did not expect that Ling Tian would dare to be so arrogant. How dare to be thinner than her in front of her father and Ji-Yu Luokong? Call. She forcibly suppressed the indignation in her heart. Her beautiful eyes looked coldly at Ling Tian and said, "Young Master Ling Tian, please respect yourself." Ah! Ling Tian lowered his eyes slightly when he heard the words, and sighed in a melancholy and disappointed manner. It seems that Her Royal Highness does not like Ling Tian this gift. That's really a pity. Everyone heard the words, and a touch of horror whispered in their hearts. How can this guy be more arrogant than Ji-Yu Luokong? And Li Xiong of the Flame Army House looked at Ling Tian, who was smiling calmly, and his throat rolled. This guy. The courage is also fattened. I really gave Her Royal Highness the princess a big hug. And Ji-Yu Luokong didn't say a word, his eyes flashed with addictive light. As everyone knows, Jan Weong is his forbidden, how can others get involved? At this moment, the temperature of the entire Heavenly Dome Hall had dropped to freezing point, and everyone could perceive the killing intent on his body. And at this moment, Martial Emperor Xiaoyao stood up. He winked at Ji-Yu Luokong. Then he opened his mouth very seriously and said to Ling Tian. Ling Tian, today the Emperor looks at Weiyong's birthday, and doesn't care about you. But now, you leave the Heavenly Vault of Heaven Palace immediately for the Emperor. You can't set foot in the palace for half a step within 3 days. Otherwise, even if your big sis Ling Yao kisses you, this Emperor will cut you off. The majestic voice fell, and the entire sky was silent. This is an eviction order. It seems that they are ready to attack Jan Weong. Ling Tian sneered in his heart. Then he spoke lightly. Since His Majesty Martial Emperor has spoken, then Ling Tian will retire first. After all, he turned around and left without caring. Your Majesty, just let him go like that. Ji-Yu Luokong gloomily watched Ling Tian's back, gritted his teeth and spoke to the Martial Emperor. When Martial Emperor heard this, he turned his head and looked at Ji-Yu Luokong and then replied. Ling Tian, you can pinch to death at any time. But don't delay today's plan. After all, the spring night is worth $1,000, isn't it? Hearing this, the gloom on Ji-Yu Luokong's face also disappeared a lot. Martial Emperor was right, he waited so many years for tonight. can't be ruined because of a Ling Tian. However, he has already decided that after fulfilling his wish tonight, he wants to personally board the Shen's military mansion and destroy Ling Tian. But he said, after Ling Tian disappeared in the Sky Palace, the expressions of Martial Emperor and Jiyu Luokong have also returned to normal. The two drank wine, and the atmosphere was harmonious. The atmosphere of the entire banquet slowly relaxed. While Jan Weong sat in a high position, a beautiful and unparalleled face was still very cold. Just now, she discovered that the divine phoenix heavenly Jiyu on her waist was missing. Only then did it react, that Ling Tian's seemingly frivolous behavior just now was premeditated. Ling Tian, what on earth do you want to do? Jan Weong took a sip of wine and whispered in a low voice. She didn't pay attention at all. There was a sneer at the corner of Martial Emperor's mouth, as well as the greed and evil in Jiyu Luokong's eyes when he used the light to slap her at her. After Ling Tian left the Tianqi temple, turn on the invisibility incarnation, and the night hides in the void. Just now I stole Jan Weong's divine phoenix heavenly jade, and used the eye of insight to see 2 of the 4 hidden messages. Jan Weong's cultivation base actually owns the cultivation base of the Holy Lord. Ling Tian spit out a mouthful of foul breath and whispered in a low voice. He didn't expect Jan Weong, who was just 20 years old, completely crush Jiyu Luokong, the godson of Tibetan Sword Villa, on the cultivation-based talent paper. And her belonging camp is the Shinto camp. Ling Tian muttered to herself after thinking about it for a moment. Conjecture based on the potential of her 1 million mandate points. Jan Weong's true identity should be that of someone from the Shinto camp in the last epoch. We must know that the world's 9 heavens billions of cultivators can be included in the Shinto camp, but there are very few cultivators. Only the cultivator stepping on the Shenshuan realm can be recognized by the Shinto temple and be included in the Shinto camp. Looking at the entire divine profound continent, the only people who can be included in the divine Dao camp are those who stand at the pinnacle of this continent. If she really has the Linglong heart of 9 orifices, then 80% may be the reincarnation of the exquisite fairy who fell in the hands of the great demon King Leng Han. Ling Tian touched her chin, her thoughts turned. But don't know why, he always feels that Jan Weong's identity is not that simple. Finally, he shook his head and looked into the Sky Palace. In any case, the identity of Jan Weong will emerge today. At this moment, the banquet in the Tianchong temple is over. The dignitaries of the martial god kingdom gradually withdrew. Jan Weong returned to Weiyang Palace alone. Soon after, the martial emperor in a black dragon robe came to Weiyang Palace. Father, it's getting late, why don't you go back to the palace to rest? Jan Weiyang was a little surprised by the arrival of martial emperor Jun Xiaoyao. Nothing, for my father there are things I want to talk to you. Martial emperor waved his hand and said. Upon hearing this, Jan Weiyang's expression was slightly restrained. She raised her head and frowned and asked. Is it about my daughter and Jiyu Luokong? That's right. Martial emperor nodded without concealment. A pair of deep eyes flashed with faint light. Weiyang, do you know how many bride prices Jiyu Luokong brought? Jan Weiyang was silent. She never wanted to marry Jiyu Luokong, so she didn't care about the number of betrothal gifts at all. 100 million purple profound crystal, 10,000 famous swords from the hidden sword villa, and the peerless sword technique of 100 Tibetan sword villas. There are also all kinds of precious profound pills, everything you need. The most important thing is that if you marry Jiyu Luokong, you can get the full support of the Tibetan sword villa as a father. If this matter can be achieved, then even if it is to protect the country, you will no longer be able to point fingers to your father, and it is impossible for the emperor to meditate. Hearing this, Jan Weiyang looked at martial emperor's eyes and spoke very seriously. Daughter told you a long time ago. Daughter does not want to marry Jiyu Luokong. As long as you give your daughter 3 years, your daughter will be able to subvert the entire guardian clan. When martial emperor heard the words, he shook his head and a touch of mockery appeared on his face. Weiyang, you are still too young and naive. You are far from knowing what Shenzong cultivation means to my royal family. But it doesn't matter if you don't know. Now, you only need to know a little bit. What's the meaning? Jun Xiaoyao held his hand and looked at Jan Weiyang deeply, without the slightest guilt or reluctance in his eyes. Jan Weong is my Jun Xiaoyao's daughter. It's also the eldest princess of my Lord Martial God country. You have a mission that you must fulfill. Your mission is to marry Jiyu Luokong. Your body and mind will belong to him. The voice fell. Jan Weiyong's pupils shrank slightly, and he couldn't believe every word he heard. You want to send me to Jiyu Luokong? Ha ha. Martial Emperor smiled and said. He will be here soon. After all, a cold light flashed in Martial Emperor's eyes. He flipped his palm, and a drop of blood-releasing flames appeared at his fingertips. Suddenly stabbed at the unsuspecting Jan Weiyong. Forehead. Under Jan Weiyong's unexpected surprise. Driven by Jun Xiaoyao's domineering profound energy, the red blood bead poured into Jan Weiyong's body instantly and melted into his blood. At the first moment when this drop of blood entered his body, Jan Weiyong felt as if a ball of flame exploded in his chest, and then quickly radiated to all parts of his body. This unprecedented reaction made Jan Weiyong's beautiful face suddenly turn red, and at the same time he took a few steps back. Father, what is this? Martial Emperor spoke blankly. The blood of the horned dragon. .. Exclamation mark quote. Jan Weiyong's pupils shrank sharply. How could she not know? The ancient horned dragon, its breath is extremely poisonous, and its blood is extremely lewd. This drop of ancient horned dragon blood. But the father took a lot of effort to get it. Weiyong, you can serve Jiyu Luokong well today. Don't waste my father's pains in vain. Jun Xiaoyao looked at his daughter Jan Weiyong with a loving smile. How can you be like this? Jan Weiyong looked at Jun Xiaoyao incredulously. She didn't understand how the father, who had always spoiled her, would have the heart to give her as a gift. Believe in father. Your sacrifice is worth it. Jun Xiaoyao stretched out his hand to touch Jun Weiyong's cheek. But it was opened by Jun Weiyong. Weiyong would rather die than follow. Jun Weiyong clenched her silver teeth, her beautiful face was flushed, and her breath became heavy. Snort. Jun Xiaoyao coldly snorted. The blood of the ancient horned dragon is the most stubborn thing. Even the strong of Jun Zan realm can't resist. For my father, I have to see if your body has your mouth hard. The voice falls. Jun Weiyong's pretty face changed wildly. At this moment, she wanted to use her profound strength to resist. But she found that the blood in her whole body seemed to have turned into magma. In that violent boiling, ignite her most primitive desire. At this time, a chuckle sounded. Luo City, meet your majesty Martial Emperor. A tall figure slowly walked into Weiyong Palace. Jiyu, Luo, Chang. When Jun Weiyong saw the incoming person, he couldn't help but gritted his teeth. Weiyong, the moonlight is so beautiful tonight. But it's not as beautiful as you. Jiyu Luokong slowly walked to Jun Weiyong's body with a hand in his hand, smiling and exclaiming. Today, even if I die, nor will let you succeed. Jun Weiyong gritted his silver teeth and made a decision with his death will, his eyes filled with hatred. But she didn't know that her own voice became extremely soft and coquettish at this moment. I don't even know what temptation this is for a man. It seems that the time has come. Martial Emperor smiled and nodded. Then he reached out and patted Jiyu Luokong on the shoulder and said. Luo City, you remember that Weiyong is my Jun Xiaoyao's daughter. You have to pity Shangxiu, don't play it badly. When Jiyu Luokong heard the words, the smile on his face couldn't help but nodded and smiled. He geared up to look at the stunning beauty in front of him. The evil fire in his eyes has overflowed his eyes. Relax, father-in-law, I will treat Weiyong well all my life. Martial Emperor nodded with satisfaction and then smiled. The moonlight tonight is indeed beautiful. After that, he turned and left Weiyong Palace. At this moment, in the huge Weiyong Palace, only Jiyu Luokong and Jun Weiyong are left. Jun Weiyong gritted her silver teeth, and said in an extremely cold tone. I just die. I won't let you succeed. Because. Not. With. Snort. Jiyu Luokong snorted coldly. Jun Weiyong, keep your mouth hard. After a while, this godson will see if you ask me to eat you. Presumptuous. Jun Weiyong's beautiful body shook for a while, coldly scolded. But she also discovered that the blood of the horned dragon was too terrifying. It can evoke the most original desire in a person's body and soul. Can't compete. If not for her, Cultivation base mental energy and cultivation base are extremely powerful. I'm afraid she can't hold it long ago. But even she is now on the verge of collapse of reason. And over time, Ji Yu Luokang looked at the hottie in front of him. It seemed that he couldn't hold back anymore. He licked his lips and made a sickly opening. Jan Weong, you are mine. I can only do it alone, Ji Yu Luokang. He stretched out his hand and directly tore off his luxurious brocade. Then he walked towards Jan Weong with a wicked smile. Ah, the flame further devours the heart and soul. Jan Weiyang's red lips slightly opened, and he let out a soft moan. She looked at Ji Yu Luokang, who was approaching herself step by step. A look of despair flashed in the beautiful eyes. Just as she was preparing to burn the jade and the stone. Zhang, the gate of Weiyang Palace opened. A ray of moonlight pours in. At the same time, a tall figure walked in slowly under the moonlight. Surrounded by cold moonlight, he descended like an overwhelming demon. A pair of cold, waking eyes that seemed to be able to cut through the night quietly looked at everything in Weiyang Palace. Jan Weiyang raised his head, staring at the visitor a little lostly, whispering to himself. How could it be him? Ji Yu Luokang turned his head and looked at the visitor. There was a touch of violence in his eyes. He couldn't help speaking coldly. It turned out to be you. Ling Tian, you immediately get out of here. Otherwise you will die. After all, there was a flash of light in his hand. The famous sword Kai Shao is now. A vicious look that wants to cut Ling Tian into 18 pieces. I saw Ling Tian just glanced at him. Then slowly raised his left hand. Middle finger and thumb interlaced. He snapped his fingers. Immediately afterwards, Ji Yu Luokang trembled all over. A pair of sharp pupils have two black lights surging. The awakening of the robbery soul seal. Then he rushed to Ling Tian like a person. Kang Dang, kneel directly on both knees. And his head hit the floor of Weiyang Palace heavily. Shouted loudly and respectfully and fearfully. Ji Yu Luokang, see the master. It was Los Angeles that offended just now. Please forgive me too. See this scene. Jan Weiyang was just stupid in place. His Royal Highness the Son of God of the Tangtang Hidden Sword Villa. Kneeling in front of Ling Tian in an extremely humble posture almost like an ant. Serving Ling Tian as if serving a god. What the hell does this happen? Is he here to save own? Jan Weiyang clutched his chest. The pretty face stared blankly at the almost illusory scene in front of her. With so many thoughts, there was a glimmer of hope in my heart. And at this moment, a flower suddenly appeared in front of her. Ling Tian has come to the front. When the breath that belongs to Ling Tian poured into her nasal cavity. For a while, she was a little dizzy. But Ling Tian didn't say a word, and even tore open her Luna streamer skirt that shielded the secret of heaven. Tear, the fairy skirt is cracking. At the same time, the last two pieces of information about Jan Weiyang also completely appeared in front of Ling Tian. Hidden identity. Samsara Mu Li, 9 Heavens Sovereign, How You King Realm Great Realm King. Hidden bloodline. How You Immortal King Body Not Yet Awakened. Looking at these two pieces of information, Ling Tian stood in the same place and muttered to herself. Jan Weiyang is Samsara. In the last era, her name was Mu Li. Looks like a big figure in the Shinto camp. Moreover, it's not an ordinary big shot. If he remembers correctly, Mu Li is the op expert of the Shinto camp in the last era. She is the great realm king of the How You King realm, and is honored as the 9 Heavens Sovereign in 9 Heavens. One person controls a huge kingdom. You must know that the world of gods and demons has 100,000 star realms. And the king realm has only a handful of 10. It can be said that the top 10 kings are the existences that stand on the top of the god and devil world. This shows that she is a woman with much power. And not only that, she also has a terrifying identity. That is, she is the cold enemy who rules 9 heavens today. Goddess Empress Mu Wechen's sister. No wonder she has a million destiny potential. It turns out that her true identity is 9 heavens lord. And it's the sister of Mu Wechen, Empress Rin Yu. Ling Tian stood in front of Jan Weiyang. Condescendingly overlooked Jan Weiyang, who was originally aloft. He let out a long sigh of breath and shook his head and muttered to himself. It's just a pity. She doesn't have the linglong heart of Juchao. But Jan Weiyang fell weakly to the ground. One hand, jade hand, and own mind, to avoid more springtime emergence. At the same time, looking stubbornly at Ling Tian, gritted his silver teeth and said in a harsh tone. Ling Tian, if you dare to do that to me, when I recover, you will surely be broken into pieces. Ling Tian tore off her clothes just now. Once made her think that Ling Tian wanted to do something wrong with her. So even though she had lost her sanity a bit, she still didn't show the slightest softness. Hearing that, Ling Tian looked down at the fingernails deeply pierced into the palms with blood flowing, just to ensure the sober Jan Weong sneered. Don't worry, if you don't have the Linglong heart of Juchao, my son is not interested in you. It's just that you have to solve this horned dragon poison by yourself. It's not worth the trouble of my son. In fact, he can save Jan Weong by purchasing only 1 drop of life water for 500 destiny in the Wanji Mall. However, he would not do such a thankless thing. Moreover, he is not taking advantage of the danger now, and it is quite good to fall into the trap. After all, Ling Tian was ready to turn around and leave. Is Jan Weong beautiful? There is no doubt about it. She can be called Junwoo's most beautiful, she is extremely beautiful. Is she seductive enough? Of course it is also certain. Not to mention her very attractive figure. As far as she was the 9 heavens lord in the last era. He is one of the top 10 kings in the palm of his hand. This is an irresistible temptation for a man. After all, who doesn't want to take a powerful woman as his own? But, Ling Tian is not a stupid person who can't walk when he sees a woman. What he wanted, Jan Weong didn't. Therefore, Jan Weong is not worth his waste of time and energy. Looking at Ling Tian who was about to leave without hesitation. Jan Weong was stunned. She didn't expect Ling Tian to be so decisive. He doesn't seem to have any temptation to him. This seems to be a good thing for herself. Actually not. Because if she can no longer solve the blood of the horned dragon in the body. When the blood of the horned dragon broke out at the end, the moment she lost her mind. Maybe something will be done. She never wanted to become a woman who could do her best. If it becomes like that, she might as well just die. And many more. Jan Weong gritted his silver teeth and stopped Ling Tian's footsteps. Then he endured the heat all over his body and bit his red lips and said. Ling Tian, if you want 9 aperture Linglong heart, just help me get rid of the blood of the horned dragon. If you help me, I will tell you who in Wudu City has the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian turned around and looked down at the damaged clothes. Jan Weong, who is on the verge of collapse with his panting reason. It seems that she has also reached the limit. She seems to have no possibility of telling lies. You seem to beg me to save you again, Ling Tian said with a smile while holding his arm. I tell you, this son is a gentleman. I won't want your body for no reason. In addition, there is the blood of horned dragon in your body, if you get crazy. Can I withstand my small body? Who? Listening to Ling Tian's words of tiger and wolf. Jan Weong couldn't help but sipped. She stared at Ling Tian and said. I know, apart from doing that, you must have other ways. After all, you have the ability to turn all the gods of Tibetan Sword Villa into your servants. The blood of the horned dragon can't be solved. Whoops, not bad. Ling Tian eyebrows frivolous. I thought, Jan Weong is quite smart. Let's talk about it. In this Wudu City, who owns the 9 aperture exquisite heart? If it's true, my son will help you. Ling Tian asked leisurely. Anyway, it's not me who is anxious now. If Jan Weong insists on playing Tai Chi with him, then it must be her who regretted it at last. Call. Jan Weong breathed out the cold air. She also knows that she and Ling Tian can't afford it now. So she decided to take a gamble, betting that Ling Tian will keep her promise. So she spoke. Fine, she's called Ji Yu Qingcheng. It's the little sister of Devil Dao Sword Fairy Ji Yu Xian. It turned out to be her. Ling Tian was surprised. When he observed Ji Yu Xian with the eye of insight in the arena of gods earlier, he learned that she had a hidden little sister. But she didn't know that she, little sister, had the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. Looking at Ling Tian's loss of consciousness, Jan Weong reminded. Don't be too happy too soon. Ji Yu Qingcheng is now Zhan Xiaoyao's most precious asset. and she was imprisoned on the top of the magic lock tower of the Martial Emperor's family academy. Without the help of this palace, you can't get her at all. However, if you can help this palace solve this horned dragon blood, this palace will help you. Hearing this, Ling Tian frowned slightly. June Martial Emperor Family Academy is the main place of June Martial God Kingdom. 3 of the top 10 Junwu masters are in the home academy of June Martial Emperor. If he insisted, I am afraid it would not be so easy to rob Ji Yu Qingcheng. However, if there is Jan Weong's help, then things are turning around. How about it? Are you helping or not? Jan Weong bit her red lips and asked. Neither Jan Weong nor Ling Tian found out at this moment. Outside the Weiyang Hall, standing a tall figure. Her elegant Tianyi military uniform can't conceal her hot and enchanting body. And where she stood, it was as cold as an abyss. Moonlight falls down. Falling on her glamorous and incomparable pretty face looked stunning. She held her hand, her beautiful eyes passed through the gate of Weiyang Hall. Finally fell on Jan Weong. Then the corner of the mouth of Oaks, a shallow arc, immediately opened his mouth and whispered, Muli, long time no see. Your big sis owes this emperor. It's up to you to pay some back tonight. Camera down. I saw a scarlet flower between her fingertips. The flowers looked quite strange under the bright moonlight. This flower is called Love Flower. The camera shifts back to Weiyang Palace. How? The news is that I have told you everything that should and shouldn't be said. Now, it's time for you to fulfill your promise and make a choice. Jan Weong bit her lips and spoke with a trembling voice. At this moment, there is only a trace of her sanity. She can feel that she is about to lose control. Hearing this, Ling Tian nodded. Then he bought a drop of life water in the Onwanji Mall and spent 500 life points. No matter how violent the blood of the horned dragon is, a drop of the water of life is enough to calm it down. In fact, this time he intends to save Jan Weong except for a deal. He has other ideas, regardless of the value of Jan Weong's hidden identity. Let's say that tonight, Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao tried to send Jan Weong to Ji Yu Luokang. Then Jun Xiaoyao completely chilled Jan Weong's heart. It is foreseeable that the father-daughter relationship between Jan Weong and Jun Xiaoyao will drop to a freezing point in the future. If so, I will help her at this time. Then you can easily pull Jan Weong into the own camp. You know, before tonight. If he kills Jun Xiaoyao, then Jan Weong must be the first to disagree. But now that Jun Weong and Jun Xiaoyao are breaking, then Jan Weong can be said to be his perfect ally. In the future, if there is the help of the eldest princess, plus the coldness of the great demon king. 3 years. No, a year's time may be able to subvert the power of June Martial Emperor, and take the life of Jun Xiaoyao, the dog emperor. There was a cold light in Ling Tian's eyes. Thinking of this, he nodded. Then he threw the crystal bottle containing a drop of life water to Jun Weong and said, Serve this drop of water of life. The blood of the horned dragon in your body will naturally calm down. Jun Weong took the crystal bottle and looked at Ling Tian. Before tonight, she would never think of. The father, who loves him well, will count her. And when it comes to the final crisis, it turned out that Ling Tian rescued her from water and fire. Really, life is like a play. And just when she opened the crystal bottle, ready to drink the water of life, suddenly, the temperature of the entire Weiyang Palace suddenly dropped to freezing point. Her delicate body trembled suddenly. Then I just felt that I had lost control of my body. During the transition of the screen, only an ice shadow was seen, walking slowly into the Weiyang Palace under the moonlight with his hands. Why is she here? Ling Tian looked at the incoming person with a touch of surprise in his eyes. Palace Master Tianyi, Yi Qingluo. Jun Weiyang's red lips slightly open. She looked at the bright and cold face under the moonlight with beautiful eyes. There was a very bad premonition in his heart. Ling Tian, you really let me down. You won't eat the fat in your mouth. Lang Han stared at Ling Tian icily. Having said that, she slowly walked to Jun Weiyang with her hands. With a wave of his hand, he directly snatched the crystal bottle containing the water of life in his hand. Master, what do you want to do? Ling Tian frowned and looked at Lang Han and asked. Do what? When Lang Han heard the words, a thought-provoking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. After that, She raised her jade hand without warning, and blasted Ling Tian's heart with a palm. Ah! Ling Tian was blasted back several steps by this palm. But he could perceive that Lang Han's palm didn't use any profound energy. Otherwise, with the cold and terrifying strength, she might be able to send herself to the west with one palm. Just when Ling Tian wondered what Lang Han devil wanted to do, I saw him walking slowly in front of him. Then he stretched out his jade hand and gently pinched it on his chin, sighing lightly. Tonight, don't let your teacher down again. The moment the voice fell, Ling Tian only felt that a flame surged from his heart, and then surged to the whole body. Within a moment, his body was already blushing. A scorching breath radiated from his body. Yi Qingluo, what did you do to her? Jan Weong looked at Ling Tian, who was almost incarnate as a volcano and released the violent heat at this moment, startled to speak. Ha ha, Lang Han smiled and said. Have you ever heard of love flowers? Love flower. When Jan Weong heard this, her pretty face suddenly changed. How could she not know that there is a saying circulating on the profound continent? Love flowers bloom for 3 days, better than bridal flowers and candles 300 times. You are shameless. Jan Weong gritted his silver teeth and glared at Lang Han. At this moment, Yi Qingluo penetrated the love flower into Ling Tian. The purpose is obviously self-evident. Snort. Lang Han hummed coldly. Ridiculous. You obviously have reached the limit of patience. Why do you pretend to be holy maiden in front of this seat? After that, she turned and left Weiyang Palace leisurely. Before leaving, she stunned Ji Yu Luokong outside the door with a palm of her hand. Kang dang. The moment Weiyang Palace closed, Jan Weiyang's heart was shocked. What Lang Han said is indeed the truth. The blood of the horned dragon was completely violent in her body. The hot flame has swallowed her sanity. And what frightened her the most was, even her own heart is constantly convincing herself. Jan Weiyang, what can't you do at once? You only need to walk to Ling Tian now, then you can reach the bliss of the world. Jan Weiyang, ask yourself. Ling Tian, can't you really accept it? With this thought in Jan Weiyang's heart, it was like a nightmare hovering in my mind and couldn't be dispelled at all. At the same time, her footsteps began to move slightly unconsciously, slowly towards Ling Tian. This devil is actually playing yin. Ling Tian clutched her chest, gritted her teeth and whispered. At this moment, he wants to spend his life value to buy the water of life to purify the poison of the love flower. However, an enchanting shadow has already stood in front of him. Looked up. What you see is a noble and beautiful face. At this moment, the beauty of Jan Weiyang's beautiful face is like a rainbow, adding a touch of charm to her cold and banal temperament. A pair of eyes that should have been as bright as a bright moon shone with a faint light that he couldn't understand. She opened her red lips slightly, and she let out a blue breath. This appearance is as beautiful as a demon in troubled times. Upon seeing this, Ling Tian knew that it couldn't go on like that anymore. So, he raised his hand and slapped Jan Weiyang's pretty face with a slap. Snapped. Jan Weiyang. You be sober. The pain on her face made her brain recover for a short while at this moment. Then her beautiful eyes looked at Ling Tian with a complicated light. The shell teeth bit the flower lip, and whispered to Ling Tian. Ling Tian, if you really dare to do that to me, when I recover, my palace will definitely not spare you. After all, the last touch of clarity in her beautiful eyes slowly dissipated. What the hell? Ling Tian didn't finish speaking. The scent of gardenia poured into the mouth and nose. At the same time, there is only one thought in his mind. Daddy's first kiss is gone. In the Weiyang Palace. A woman in the blood of a horned dragon. A man with the poison of love flowers. As if fate meet, hugged together. It gradually melted into the only warmth in that bright but extremely cold moonlight. The moonlight tonight is like spring water. Extremely gentle. Weiyang Palace. Jan Weiyang is standing in front of the window in a plain white dress. The beautiful eyes looked at the dying moon in the night with a blank look. The bright moonlight fell on her jade-like incomparable face, somehow it looked a little sad. Upon closer inspection, her beautiful eyes were red, and there were some tears on Chao's face. As if I had just cried. After a while, she turned around and looked at the man who seemed to be asleep in her bed. At this moment, her mind that finally calmed down became chaotic again. Ling Tian, Jan Weong bit her lips tightly and called out the name of the man who took her body. After that, a cold light flashed through her beautiful eyes, and Lianbu moved straight towards Ling Tian. Jan Weong walked to the bed. The confusion in my heart is endless, I can't stop at all. She looked down at Ling Tian, as if she wanted to keep in her heart every feature of the man who robbed her of her chastity, and never forget it. After a while, she just said coldly, "My palace said. If you dare to do that to this palace, my palace will definitely not let you go. That, still count it." Although her words are harsh. But she didn't see any movement that threatened Ling Tian's life at all. But too, if she really wants to kill Ling Tian, she can kill as soon as she recovers her sanity. And she didn't. At this moment, no one knows what she is thinking. At this time, there was a knock on the door. "His Royal Highness, are you up yet?" This is the voice of Jan Weong's personal maid, Yu Mei. This hour of the day is the time for Yu Mei to come to serve Jan Weong and get up. "Come in," Jan Weong said coldly. Opening the palace gate, Yu Mei walked into Weong Palace as usual. It's just that the scene in front of her instantly made her stand still. Weiyang's bedroom at this moment. The broken clothes were scattered all over the floor. And there is a strange and strong breath in the air. Strangely makes her blush, and the richness makes her dizzy. Especially Her Royal Highness the eldest princess is sitting by the edge of the bed. And there was a man lying on the phoenix bed. Although she is an unmanned girl, she also knows what must have happened before in Weiyang Palace. "What, Hall, Your Highness. You. He." Yue Mei screamed, her eyes flashing with look of disbelief. The shock in her heart made her unable to even say a complete sentence. Upon hearing this, Jan Weiyang's expression was indifferent, and then he said coldly, "Yes, Ling Tian and I are just as you imagine." Yu Mei heard this, she couldn't help but stared at her noble Royal Highness. In her heart, Jan Weiyang is a holy existence like 9 heavens. There is absolutely no man in this world who can match her. But, at this moment, she actually admitted to having an affair with a man. Ling Tian, is that the mysterious and unpredictable young palace master of the Shen's army mansion? Yu Mei quietly glanced at the man lying on the bed of Her Royal Highness, her pretty face could not help but blush. In this way, Ling Tian will become a consort in the future. His Royal Highness, Meyer will go down first. You have more rest. Last night. You were tired. Yu Mei lowered her eyes slightly, her voice getting smaller and smaller. At the end, the sound is like a mosquito. After all, she gave a salute to Junwei Central Bank. Then prepared to flee the scene. This strange hormonal breath made her blush and heartbeat, and it was her limit to stay until now. And many more. Jan Weiyang opened his mouth and drank Yu Mei's footsteps. Then he said, "Mayor, it's almost time to go to court." Yu Mei nodded in response. "Return, Your Highness, there is still half an hour left, it is time for the meeting." "That's great," Jan Weiyang said with a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. "In that case, what are you resting? It's time to go to the imperial meeting and see the father." Forehead. Yu Mei looked at Jan Weiyang with some doubts. With the status of Her Royal Highness, the last dynasty meeting was fine. However, it seems unnecessary. Because if Jan Weiyang really wants to do anything, as long as she speaks. Naturally, countless people did it for her. "His Royal Highness, do you have anything to announce?" Yu Mei asked in a low voice. With her understanding of Jan Weiyang, there is only one possibility. "Ha ha," Jan Weiyang sneered. "Today, but the big day in this palace. Naturally there is something to announce." Yu Mei. She raised her head slightly and quietly looked at Her Majesty's unparalleled face that had been exhausted from heaven's efforts. At this moment, full of indifference and a trace of madness. She couldn't help but roll, regardless of what Jan Weiyang wants to announce. As for the madness of Her Royal Highness at this moment, it is the first time she has seen her in her life. Now, there is only one thought in her mind, and that is, it's over. It's going to be a big mess. When Jan Weiyang left Weiyang Palace with Yue Mei, a beautiful shadow slowly fell into the palace. With her appearance, the temperature of the entire palace dropped a lot. She walked slowly to the bed and looked at Ling Tian, who was sleeping. She was silent for a long time. Then she stretched out her jade hand and gently stroked Ling Tian's cheek, whispering, "Last night, You worked hard. After that, she turned and disappeared in Wei Yong Palace. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Haoyu Yin Yuan. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining 100,000 mandate points. Ding. Congratulations to the host cultivation base ascension to the 3 realms of conquering kings. Ding. Congratulations to the host cultivation base ascension to the 4 kingdoms of the king. Ding. Congratulations to the host cultivation base ascension to the 8th realm. Ding. Congratulations to the host and the evil moon empress's cold couple value reached 10%. Ding. Congratulations to the host for acquiring the couple skills auditory hallucinations. The sound of the system prompts like a frantic bombardment pierced my ears. Ling Tian frowned, then opened his eyes leisurely. Unfamiliar ceiling, strange bed, strange smell. And, the whole body is numb and soft, and the body is almost hollowed out and very weak. All this reminded him that everything that happened with Jan Weong last night was not a dream. The pictures that make people blush and heartbeat are like movies played back in his mind. Can't help but let Ling Tian's face change again and again. After a long time, Ling Tian calmed down her mood and shook her dizzy head. Then he sat up slowly, leaning against the golden phoenix carved lean at the head of the bed. Spit out a deep breath of helplessness to himself. Unexpectedly, I gave this woman to. Hey. Actually last night, neither of them was wrong. After all, Jan Weong was beaten into the blood of the horned dragon by Jun Xiaoyao. And he was planted with the poison of love flower by his own glamorous big devil coldly. He and Jan Weong can be said to be involuntary. But what to say, because of what happened yesterday, I got a lot of benefits. First of all, because I got the vowel of Jan Weong and Haoyu. Own cultivation base went directly from the 2nd realm of ascension to the 8th realm. This is a total of 6 small realms. Besides, because of my intimacy with Jan Weong last night, I directly unearthed 1/10 of the potential of Jan Weong's million destiny. 100,000 destiny is worth to the account. This is undoubtedly a proper wave of riches. Finally, Ling Tian doesn't know why. The ascension value of myself and the cold couple is also inexplicably 10%. Then I succeeded in getting a couple skills auditory hallucinations. Why is this? Could it be because this woman feels guilty to herself? Ling Tian scratched his head. Apart from this reason, he really couldn't think of any other reasons. But whatever the reason, in short, this night's fatigue, blood earned. But, where did the woman Jan Weong go? Ling Tian looked around but did not see the figure of Jan Weong. He firmly remembered that Jan Weong threatened his own words before losing control. Now, things have happened. But this woman didn't even do anything to herself. This surprised him in particular. In fact, what he didn't know was, Jan Weong has also benefited a lot because of her. After last night, her Haoyu immortal king body had officially begun to awaken. Some scattered memories of past lives began to reappear in her mind. She started a real transformation. But as for why she didn't kill Ling Tian, only she knows this reason. And at this moment, the sound transmission stone rang. Ling Tian, where are you? I am waiting for you at the Shen's military mansion. The cold voice sounded. Ling Tian frowned. I wonder what routine does this woman want to play with herself? Yesterday she used Yi Qingluo's identity to shame herself fiercely. Although the result is not bad for me. But Ling Tian decided that from now on, he must beware of this moody woman. After all, he is not sure, Lang Han, the female devil doesn't know what else she will do to crush her 3 views. Finish dressing. After Ling Tian walked out of Wei Yong Palace slowly. Then evoke the soul of robbery. Zheng. A dark shadow directly flashed to Ling Tian's eyes from a hidden corner outside the palace. Meet the master. Ji Yu Luokong knelt down at Ling Tian's feet piously. Last night, he was stunned by the cold palm outside Wei Yong Palace. I didn't wake up until not long ago. And without Ling Tian's order, he would not go back anywhere. Just so straight to guard outside Wei Yong Palace. Where is Jan Weong? Ling Tian asked in a deep voice. Jan Weong, he has already set off from the Phoenix Palace half an hour ago. Hearing this, Ling Tian frowned and mumbled to herself. This time should be the time of the Jun Wuchao meeting. What is she going there for? He knew that the Phoenix Palace was the Great Hall of the Martial Emperor's Parliament. It stands to reason that Jan Weong shouldn't appear on that occasion. Ji Yu Luokong, you go to the Phoenix Hall now and see what happened. Ling Tian opened his mouth and ordered. I don't know why, he always feels that something is going to happen faintly. Yes. After receiving the order, Ji Yu Luokong turned into a black shadow and disappeared in front of Ling Tian's eyes. Fine, let's go back to the Shen's military mansion first. Ling Tian decided to return to Shen's Junfu to see what Lang Han wanted to do with Ruyi Scepter. Anyway, he now has a couple skills auditory hallucinations. No matter what conspiracy Lang Han is planning, he can't hide it from him. Therefore, he is not afraid. Shen's military mansion. Exclusively in Ling Tian's peach blossom garden. She is standing under a peach blossom tree in her elegant Xingyi. At this moment, she has taken off Yi Qingluo's makeup. It became the cold and beautiful face that Ling Tian had when we first met in the magical beasts forest. She is very quiet and seems to be thinking about something. Let the peach petals fall on her shoulders. And when Ling Tian stepped into the courtyard, she turned around, a cool smile on her beautiful face. You're here. The voice fell, and there was another cold heartfelt in his mind. This guy, why is he so desperate? Could it be that he is still aggrieved by what happened last night? Ling Tian listened to these words. I couldn't help but raise my spirit. He acted the desperate look just now. After all, a man who has just lost his life to another woman, if he is facing his girlfriend, he will definitely be unwilling. And he has to figure out, what kind of trick is the cold devil going to do? Call. Ling Tian took a deep breath and continued to perform. Cold and cold. I have one thing to confess to you. Last night, Jan Weong and something that shouldn't have happened. Speaking of which, Ling Tian's eyes are full of guilt and a trace of pain. This sentence seemed to be a confession after his thoughtful thinking, and the depression in his heart was also beyond words. Oh, cold willow eyebrows frivolous. She naturally knew what happened last night. After all, she is the biggest black hand. Everything is controlled by her. Tell me, what the hell is going on? Coldly holding his arms. A beautiful face is full of coldness. Obviously, she will do it again. Actually, there is nothing to say. It's just a matter between a woman who was tortured by the blood of the horned dragon and a man who was planted with love. Ling Tian shook his eyes and slowly closed his eyes. A look hard to tell. Looking at Ling Tian's appearance, Lang Han sighed. Sure enough, did he still hurt him? I heard the cold heart. Ling Tian couldn't help being a little surprised. This devil is really guilty. It seems that this is why the ascension value of herself and her couple can reach 10%. But 2. A wonderful way to plant love flowers for your boyfriend and give other women. Even a cruel demon like Lang Han would feel uncomfortable. Ling Tian sighed deeply and said, to be honest, I really don't understand, my master. Why did she do that? Why must we use this method to force Jan Weong and me together? Doesn't she know that the twisted melon is not sweet? Lang Han heard that. She was silent for a while and said, maybe she has other difficulties. After that, a cold heart came from Ling Tian's mind. Silly boy, Mu Li's Hao Yu Yuanian is of great use to you. Moreover, Mu Li lost her body, but the emperor asked Mu Wechen for the interest in advance. Hey, can you not do this kind of thing that kills 2 birds with 1 stone? Ling Tian got it. It turned out that Lang Han also discovered the true identity of Jan Weong. That's why she did it. All right, don't take this to heart. What happened last night, treat it as a dream. Then forget it. Lang Han walked into Ling Tian's side and spoke softly. Do you really not care? Ling Tian stared blankly and asked. Ha ha, coldly smiled, turned around, looked at the floating peach blossom and red lips with his hands and said softly. How could it not care? It's just that it has already happened. What can I do? Can I kill Jan Weong or your master? Or, kill you who betrayed me? Upon hearing this, Ling Tian was taken aback. Haven't waited for him to speak. Lang Han continued. You know, none of these will work, are they? So, the only thing we can do right now is to forget the past and join hands to move towards a better future, right? Forehead. Good guys. I'm a direct guy. Lang Han's remarks carry helplessness and grief, as well as longing for the future. Whoever hears it will be moved by it. Where to find such a considerate girlfriend? If Ling Tian didn't know that the woman in front of her was both cold and Yi Qinglo. Maybe, he really believed it. Do you really think that? Ling Tian asked quietly. Certainly. Lang Han turned his head and looked at Ling Tian quietly, with a pair of beautiful eyes as quiet as a secluded lake. However, immediately afterwards, her conversation changed. However, Ling Tian, I hope you can promise me one thing. This is the only thing we can do now. You say. Ling Tian nodded. I hope, from today, we officially began to fall in love. Speaking seriously with a cold face. Ah, Ling Tian almost didn't react after hearing this. He felt that he couldn't keep up with Lang Han's leap of thinking. But then, a Dao heart sounded in his mind. Starting to fall in love today. Then wait until this kid reaches realm. How can we reach the level of spiritual harmony and intermind communication? HMPH. When that time, the fetters are successful, this emperor will definitely be able to return to the top of 9 heavens. Heard this, Ling Tian's body is sonorous. He knew. This devil, every step is purposeful, including falling in love with yourself. But, this is also a good thing. After all, if Lengen and I really complete the destiny bond, then it is not only her who gets the benefit, but she can also complete the main task and get massive system rewards. Ling Tian thought of this, secretly nodded and then replied. Good, since the cold girl, don't dislike it. Then Ling Tian will naturally fulfill her boyfriend's obligations. From now on, we will be in love. Hearing this, Lang Han nodded in satisfaction. But she seemed to think of something and said in her heart. The plan went well, but it's back again. After all, what is love? How to fall in love again? Kill, destroy the world, fight, practice, rule, and control the power of the world. These are the things she is good at. But when it comes to falling in love, this really touched her blind spot of knowledge. When Ling Tian heard the cold heart, he couldn't help but laugh. Shindao, ha ha ha, this devil has today too. Maybe, I can't beat her now. But to talk about the love experience, there is no scum that can really crush her. Now, the first move. You can't fall in love, so I have to pretend that I can't. Not why, because buddies like to be passive. Ling Tian smiled slightly. Afterwards, he looked at the somewhat confused Cold and joked. Lang Han miss, you don't know how to talk about love, right? Hearing this, a panic flashed in his cold and beautiful eyes. But soon, he recovered his calm red lips and spoke with disdain. Huh, how can this miss not know how to talk about love? Ling Tian, who are you looking down on? That's great. Ling Tian nodded heavily after hearing this and smiled. Lengen miss, since I understand it. It's true. About, in love. Ling Tian, I don't know anything if it is true. Snort. Lang Han hummed coldly. I think so. What do you know, a fool who has liked Yi Qinglo for 10 years. But don't worry, leave it to me in the future. About love, this miss will teach you personally. Do not worry, she just finished. Ling Tian's mind came to the real thoughts that belong to the cold. It's over. Love or something, the most annoying. God knows how to talk. In her years, I never put the matter of men and women to put in one's eyes. In her world, this kind of thing is too troublesome and affects her speed of ruling the world. Therefore, she really knows nothing about love. Although the emperor won't. But if you want to come to the library of Tianyi Junfu, there should be a lot of teaching. Yes, there must be. Having said that, Lang Han nodded affirmatively, then turned and walked outside the Shen's army mansion. She wants to rush back to the Tianyi army mansion, find those painting books describing love, and observe them. She believes that with her talent, it shouldn't be too much to make a love fast. No matter how difficult it is to fall in love, it will never be more difficult than commanding a huge devil Dao camp, right? Lengen miss, where are you going? Ling Tian looked at the cold back and asked. Snort, coldly hummed. Wrong, Benzuo will go back and prepare a love teaching for you, a fool who knows nothing. Wait for me here, don't run around. Hearing that, Ling Tian said to himself with a bit of a bitter smile. No way, no one will really learn how to fall in love in books. Besides, you want to teach me. Not long after Lengen left, there were chaotic sounds from outside his courtyard. Two brilliant strategy officers hurriedly came to report. Palace Yang, something big happened. What? Ling Tian frowned and asked. What happened? The wise officer wiped the fine sweat from his forehead and replied. Today, His Royal Highness Princess Martial Emperor was vomiting blood in the Fengji Hall. Vomiting blood? Why? Ling Tian asked with suppressed emotions. Hearing this, the two strategists looked at each other and then responded with a little embarrassment and hesitation. It is said that this matter is related to you. Ling Tian was silent for a long time after hearing this. Frowned and whispered to himself. Jan Weong. What the hell did you do? But an hour ago, in the Phoenix Hall, Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao is presiding over the daily pilgrimage. At this moment, the civil and military officials of the Martial Emperor are discussing state affairs, and the entire Fengji Hall is very lively. Our country has temporarily truce with the Feathered Empire. His Royal Highness Yu Mochin of the Feather Empire and his peace talk mission are under the escort of the Shent's army, and they will be able to reach Wudu within 10 days. The kingdom of Martial God has fought with the Feathered Empire for 10 years, and now finally ushered in the opportunity to make peace. This time we definitely want to cherish it. Yes, today's peace is hard won. The establishment of diplomatic relations between the Martial Emperor and the Feathered Empire cannot be delayed, even if we pay a certain price. Master Shang Shu is right. General Li is right. At this moment, Jun Xiaoyao is sitting on the throne. A pair of eyes sparkled with joy. He didn't pay attention to what the dignitaries of Martial God said at the court meeting. Because today his mind can be said to be not above the meeting. But in the Weiyang Palace. In his prediction, Jun Weiyang is probably already cooking rice with Ji Yu Luokang. Soon after I want to come, Hidden Sword Villa will be able to publicly announce that he supports him, Xiaoyao. As long as he has the support of Kangjian Villa, even if he wants to come, he can't shake his throne at all. Today, it's really a good day. Jun Xiaoyao took a sip of the tea on the table and sighed. At this moment, only a cold voice came from the great hall. Daughter Jun Weiyang, hereby please greet my father. Hear this voice. The entire Fengji Hall suddenly became quiet. All the dignitaries in the Martial God Kingdom looked out of the palace gate. The eldest princess Jun Weiyang is here. This is a novelty. You know, although Jun Weiyang is eligible to participate in the court meeting. But for so many years, they have never seen Jun Weiyang in the morning. Your Majesty, Your Royal Highness is here today, isn't she here to inquire? Xicheng Factory Public Rain and Tianchen reminded in a low voice. It's okay, since this has happened. Then the boat is sinking, she can't change it, she can only accept it. Moreover, the Emperor believes that Wei Yang's pattern will not be that small. Jun Xiaoyao smiled and said. He didn't think that Jun Weiyang would turn his face with him in this meeting. He still thought about taking advantage of the opportunity of the meeting. The matter of Jun Weiyang and the godson of Kangjian Villa was made public. In this way, it is also a deterrent to the guardian Zong who is about to attack him not to mess around. Between words, I saw that Jun Weiyang had already stepped into the Phoenix Hall. Today's Jun Weiyang, a gorgeous moon skirt outlines her mature and enchanting perfect curve. Perhaps it was because she lost the element of Yuan Yin that she was a little less pure and more beautiful than before. And no one noticed that the only warmth in her eyes disappeared. In its place is the indifference of gazing at the world and the dignity that surpasses 9 heavens. Weiyang, how did you think of coming to this meeting today? Jun Xiaoyao looked at Jun Weiyang with a smile on his face. It seemed that what he had sold it to Ji Yu Luokang last night didn't happen at all. Ha ha, Jun Weiyang sneered. Weiyang naturally asks his father to come to this meeting early in the morning. Oh, let's talk about it. Upon hearing this, Jun Xiaoyao looked at Jun Weiyang interestingly. He was a little curious, what exactly did Jun Weiyang want to ask of him? Father, last night, Weiyang's birthday. Maybe it's God's favor that made Weiyang find a true emperor who can entrust his life to life. So, I would like to implore the emperor to let him be Weiyang's husband, and be my husband, Martial God. Jun Weiyang said calmly. There is no shyness of a young girl above that unparalleled face. As predicted, her voice just fell. The entire Fengji Hall exploded. What? Her Royal Highness Princess Long has found the true emperor. It's over, it's over. That stinky kid in my family is completely out of play. Master Zhao, you think too much, just the honor of your son, right? Hi, what are you telling the truth? But having said that, who is the man who can make Her Royal Highness the favorite? Do you still have to think about it? It must be His Royal Highness of the Hidden Sword Villa. Yes, except for him, I am afraid that there is no second person in this world who can be in the eyes of Her Royal Highness the Princess. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao listened to the controversy in the Great Hall. The smile on his face is getting stronger. For Jan Weong, he can say that he knows too well. Now that it has happened. So even if she is unwilling, then at least she will put the overall situation first. Sure enough, things are exactly as he expected. He smiled heartily. Weiyang, you deserve to be the good daughter of the Emperor's father. Ha ha. Jun Xiaoyao looked at Jun Weiyang with a kind smile and said. Weiyang, have you figured it out clearly? Although the father is also very optimistic about that kid. But this is your lifelong event. Father, don't want to put any pressure on you. When Jun Weiyang heard this, there was no expression on her pretty face. But there is a touch of sarcasm and chill in those beautiful eyes that are as bright as the moon. She said softly with red lips. Daughter thinks very clearly. After all, daughter already has a husband and wife relationship with him. This sentence falls. Everyone's expressions suddenly stagnated. They never thought. The eldest princess Jun Weiyang has already handed over her own body. This is a big event in the martial god country. Not only that, if this incident spreads, I am afraid that not only the martial emperor, but also the 10 kingdoms of Shenzhen will cause shock. After all, the cultivator of the 10 kingdoms of gods and profound realms admiring Jun Weiyang can form a small country. Ha ha ha. Jun Xiaoyao looked at the dignitaries who were sluggish in the same place and smiled, then waved his hand and said. Everyone don't need to be like this. These two little guys are young people after all. Young blood Qi Fang gang, this is a normal thing. The emperor feels that the two children are a match made in heaven, so even if they do things for men and women, it's not something that can't be accepted. Martial Emperor opened his mouth. The atmosphere in the entire Fengji Hall is much more relaxed. What Your Majesty said, everyone came from a young age. You should understand that it is normal for men and women to do firewood. Yes, yes, as long as Her Royal Highness likes it, then we will definitely not object. Bishi, the person whom Your Royal Highness likes must be the son of a true dragon. Whoever dares to speak against, I can't forgive him first. God bless me, Junwu. Jun Weiyang listened to almost one-sided remarks. Then the corners of the lips that looked like rose petals slowly raised their mouths. In that case, then Weiyang, please ask the emperor to make an order for marriage. It is good. Jun Xiaoyao nodded and then asked with a smile knowingly. Do not know. Which son does my baby girl like? Ha ha. Jun Weiyang's unparalleled face and smile gradually deepened. Father doesn't know anything. The person Weiyang likes. It's the Shen's military mansion, young palace master. Ling Tian. What? When Martial Emperor heard Ling Tian's name, he stood up suddenly. A pair of eyes stared straight at Jun Weiyang, gnashing his teeth and asked again. You said. Who are you going to marry? Snort. Jun Weiyang hummed coldly and repeated again. Ling. God. Martial Emperor heard this, his face suddenly turned green, slapped the table with a slap and shouted angrily. Asshole. Do you know what else you are talking about? Martial Emperor is angry. All the dignitaries in the Fengji Hall suddenly shrank their necks, their faces became extremely pale. Most of them didn't know why the Martial Emperor, His Majesty, was in such a good mood, why he was so angry. Didn't you smile just now? At this moment, only a few people have guessed the mind of the Martial Emperor. The group shook their heads and murmured to themselves. It seems that Ling Tian, the young man of the Shen's military mansion, is not the son-in-law candidate of His Majesty Martial Emperor. And the camera shifts to Jun Weiyang. At this moment, she looked at Martial Emperor with a sneer on her face and mocked. Father, what's wrong with you? Didn't you say that my daughter and Ling Tian are a match made in heaven? Why are you so angry? It shouldn't be true. Snort. Martial Emperor gave a cold snort. He stared at Jun Weiyang with cold eyes and then said. Where is Ji Yu Luokong? Last night, you weren't with him. That's it. He did not go on. It's just a pair of pupils gleaming with sharp cold light. Jan Weong stroked his delicate chin with his hand and thought for a while and then said. His Royal Highness the Son of God should have watched the moon outside Weong Palace last night. Last night was the most important day in my daughter's life. How can I manage him? Last night, after Yi Qinglo struck and planted Ling Tian a love flower, she blasted Ji Yu Luokong out of Weong Palace with a palm. So she said that it was not wrong for Ji Yu Luokong to watch the moon outside Weong Palace last night. You fart, Martial Emperor yelled. Then he turned his head and said to the gloomy Shichengcheng Gong Yu Tianchen. Let the Emperor find Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa right away. The Emperor wants to ask him personally. And at this moment, a clear voice resounded through the Phoenix Hall. Your Majesty, are you looking for me? The moment the voice fell, a tall figure slowly walked into the Phoenix Hall. The person here is His Highness the son of Kangjian Villa, Ji Yu Luokong. Everyone was shocked to look at the great reputation, His Royal Highness, the god of Tibetan Sword Villa, who is known as the Young Sword Fairy. They didn't expect that this one would actually come to the court. She said, is that true? Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao stared at Ji Yu Luokong and asked. What your Royal Highness Princess said is indeed true. Last night, indeed, the Son of God, as the princess long said, watched the moon outside Weiyang Palace. It's true that there has not been any intersection with Her Royal Highness the Princess. Ji Yu Luokong held his hand and looked at Jun Xiaoyao calmly and said. At this moment, there are two black lights flashing under his eyes. This is the light of the soul-stirring seal. He was blasted out of the Weiyang Palace by Yi Qinglo last night, and then fainted outside the Weiyang Palace before waking up in the morning. But he knew he couldn't tell the truth, because Jun Weiyang in front of him had an indescribable relationship with his master. Therefore, whatever Jun Weiyang said, he would respond to it. What happened last night? Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao's fist trembling. The person in front of him was indeed Ji Yu Luokong. But I don't know why, Ji Yu Luokong feels completely different to him at this moment. The previous Ji Yu Luokong, but regarded Jun Weiyang as the most important obsession in his life. But now, he doesn't seem to know Jun Weiyang at all. So, yesterday in Weiyang Palace, it's really you and Ling Tian. You two, are you really together? Martial Emperor's eyes are red, and his voice is very deep. Under the camera, his majestic face is now full of dangerous haze. Upon hearing this, Jun Weiyang couldn't deny his face and smiled. Naturally, it's me and Ling Tian. This sentence just fell. The Martial Emperor's body shook for a while. Didn't hold back for a while. Blood chi surges. There was a flush of flush on his face. Then he suddenly vomited a big mouthful of blood. Puff. Dark golden blood spilled over the mahogany table. The air in the entire great hall is filled with a chilling breath. His Majesty, Your Majesty Martial Emperor. Call the royal doctor. I saw the Martial Emperor vomiting blood. Suddenly, the entire Fengji hall was messed up into a pot of porridge. Everyone's face is pale, and their footsteps are vain. They are deeply afraid of what will happen to Jun Xiaoyao. But in fact, they are too worried. Martial Emperor Jun Xiaoyao has a cultivation base of Junzan level. Just now, it was just the upwelling of blood qi, and it didn't matter at all. However, I have to say, Jun Xiaoyao's mental arithmetic at the moment has fallen to the bottom. After all, if Ji Yu Luokong didn't get Jun Weiyang, then the agreement between him and Tibetan Sword Villa had no effect at all. If it is to protect the country, he is really determined to let him meditate. He also had to meditate. And at this moment, Jun Weiyang walked in slowly and said with a smile. Father, look, you vomited blood with joy. It seems that you are very satisfied with the cohort Weiyang chose for you. Roll. Jun Xiaoyao scowled with a cold face. At this moment, he didn't want to see Jun Weiyang. He needs time to figure out what happened last night. It made him feel that the world has changed in just one night. Shichengcheng Gongyu Tianchen walked to Jun Weiyang and said indifferently. His Royal Highness Princess, since Your Majesty has ordered, then please leave the Phoenix Hall. Otherwise, the old slave will personally send you away. Jun Weiyang glanced at the rainy dust, then smiled and said to the Martial Emperor. Ha 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 ha, it doesn't matter if you disagree with your daughter and Ling Tian. Daughter, come here today, just want to see your desperate and embarrassed look after you learned about your daughter and Ling Tian. Since I've seen it. Then the daughter retires. Father, please take care of yourself. Also, don't think about it at the Tibetan Sword Villa. Because of Ling Tian, my daughter is married. Having said that, Jan Weong turned around and slowly left the Phoenix Hall in the eyes of everyone's surprise. And Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of Hidden Sword Villa, also quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone stared blankly at Jan Weong's back. They don't know why, but they faintly feel that the former dignified princess has changed a little. Become some crazy. Tianchen, something weird must have happened last night that we didn't expect. Otherwise, our thorough and perfect plan will never fail. But, what happened? I don't even have a clue right now. The Emperor, hate it. Martial Emperor Zhun Xiaoyao's eyes gleamed with suspicious light and said to Shi Chengcheng Gongyu Tianchen with hatred. His Majesty, you were right. This thing is extremely wrong. Shi Chengcheng Gongyu Tianchen squinted his eyes and looked at the departing Jan Weong and said. Even so, what can we do? Now the wood is sinking. There is no room for recovery. Moreover, that fool from Ji Yu Luokong, he looked like a different person after last night. The beautiful lady who got it, turned out to be so cupped hands. The Emperor really can't understand. Martial Emperor Zhun Xiaoyao spoke indifferently with a sullen face. Actually, it's not completely incomprehensible. Yu Tianchen narrowed his eyes and there was a cold light in it. What's the meaning? Martial Emperor frowned and didn't understand the meaning of Yu Tianchen. Ha ha, Yu Tianchen smiled, and a sharp flash of eyes flashed through a pair of vulture-like eyes. Your Majesty, I don't know if you still remember, Shen's military mansion Lingjian. Snort. Martial Emperor hummed coldly. The Emperor naturally remembers that traitor. He is now the most loyal dog around Ling Tian. If it wasn't for the Emperor to think about the overall situation, he would be a dead dog now. Yu Tianchen smiled unconvincingly and then quietly asked. The performance of His Highness the Son of God of Hidden Sword Villa is very strange today. But Your Majesty, don't you think that? The matter of Ling Jian's rebellion against the enemy is also very strange. You worked so hard to train him for nearly 10 years. How could he betray you overnight? Even if he has a heart of betrayal, but for so many years, with his patience, how can he hide the eyes of you and me? Listening to the words of Yu Tianchen, Zhun Xiaoyao was lost in thought. Then his eyes lit up suddenly and he said coldly. You mean, Ling Jian was manipulated by someone? He betrayed the Emperor, he couldn't help himself. That's right, Yu Tianchen nodded heavily and then said. In fact, Ling Jian lost contact after Wang Yuan. Up to the battlefield of the gods, he inexplicably became the guard by Ling Tian's side. No matter what his subordinates look at, he is like a manipulated puppet. So with this question, the subordinates specially spent a lot of money and asked Tianji Pavilion. How did Tianji Pavilion respond? Tianji Pavilion replied. In Ling Jian's situation, there is a high probability that someone will be killed by someone, and a small probability will be controlled by someone. Yu Tianchen replied gloomily. It is so. Zhun Xiaoyao's face changed. Then he thought of Ji Yu Luokong, who behaved very strangely above the Fengji temple today. He immediately asked, could it be that like Ling Jian, Ji Yu Luokong has been poisoned or controlled by Ling Tian? That's right. Yu Tianchen nodded heavily. Do you think Ji Yu Luokong is obsessed with His Royal Highness the Princess to the extreme? For so many years, I have been willing to be used by it. Isn't he just for being able to get His Royal Highness the Princess one day? How could he let go of such a good opportunity last night? How is it possible that cupped hands are willing to give Her Royal Highness Princess Ling Tian to Ling Tian? Moreover, on the Great Hall today, he looked at Her Royal Highness as if looking at a stranger. Do you think it is possible? When Zhun Xiaoyao heard this, his thoughts flew. A majestic face was already full of chill. He originally thought that Ji Yu Luokong had reached an agreement with Ling Tian and Jan Weong. But now, it seems, Ji Yu Luokong is more likely to be controlled by Ling Tian's sole controller under the Ji Yu control. Thought of here, a handsome face with a smile appeared in his mind. A burst of uncontrolled anger surged into my heart. Boom. He raised the palm of his hand and patted the precious mahogany table in front of him that weighed thousands of pounds into ashes. At the same time gritted his teeth and said in a cold voice. Ling Tian, be so courageous. Dare to attack the god of Tibetan Sword Villa. It's really bad for me. Ha ha. Yu Tianchen nodded with a smile that couldn't be denied. Ling Tian, this young man is indeed a genius of Tianzong. Not only does it have great talent and the means to reach the sky. There is still a forbearing heart. Hidden under our eyelids for 10 years. Snort. Martial Emperor snorted coldly. He gradually calmed down, and asked immediately. Duke, how do you think we should take the next step now? If there is no Tibetan Sword Villa, the old guy who protects the country will not talk to the emperor. The throne is unstable, I am uneasy. Hearing this, he thought about it and responded. Your Majesty, the current situation is difficult, simple and simple. Now, we just need to make things big. You said, if Mrs. Luo from the Hidden Sword Villa knows that her precious son is under control, will she still sit and live? Ha ha ha. Naturally I can't sit still. When Martial Emperor heard this, he couldn't help but sneered. In the Hidden Sword Villa, the Roy people are notorious for protecting the calf. If she really knows, her precious son will be controlled by someone. Doesn't it have to move all the 4 elders of the Tibetan Sword Villa to Wudu and ask Ling Tian Xingxi to ask the crime? This way, it's a great thing for us to remove the Shen's military mansion by Kangjian Villa for us. Yu Lingchen smiled gloomily. Ha 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 ha, really good. Martial Emperor Xiaoyao also laughed out loud. As for the threat from Huguizong, the subordinates also have a way to solve it. Yu Tianchen spoke in a low voice. Oh, tell me. Zhen Xiaoyao looked at own think tank Yu Tianchen with a smile on his face. This way, you need your Majesty to cut love. Yu Tianchen reminded in advance. It's okay, you can speak frankly. Zhen Xiaoyao shook his head. Now the pressure of Huguizong has made him feel breathless. As long as he can keep his throne, no matter what he pays, he will be 10,000 willing. His Majesty, have you forgotten, on the top of the Lock Demon Tower, isn't there a woman with an exquisite heart of 9 orifices? If you are, give that woman to Huguizong. Then, Huguizong will naturally not embarrass you anymore. Listening to Rainy Day Dust's suggestion, Zhen Xiaoyao was silent for a while. Although he is very greedy for Juqiao Linglongshin. But now, Juqiao Linglongshin is not yet mature. Even if it is picked now, it will not condense the Chaos Sage at all. Even backlash to him, to no advantage to him. If you want its Linglongshin to be harvested after it has matured, it will take at least several years. But now, what he lacks most is time. Therefore, it is better to hand over the woman on the lock tower. In exchange for her, the stability of his throne. You're right, 9 aperture Linglongshin can indeed solve the threat of protecting the country. If that's the case, you go ahead and do it. Notify Tibetan Sword Villa first, and then call Huguizong to come to Wudu to pick up people. Zhen Xiaoyao decisively accepted Yu Tianchen's suggestion after weighing it up. Tianchen takes his life. Definitely live up to the Emperor's grace. After that, Yu Tianchen turned and left the Phoenix Hall. What he has to do is actually very simple, just 2 pieces of news to tell you the 2 god-tier sects of the martial god country. However, the storms that these 2 pieces of news can set off have terrifying power beyond imagination. At this moment, only Zhen Xiaoyao is left in the huge palace. After pondering for a moment, he looked gloomy through the palace gate and said to the blue sky. Ling Tian, wait for the emperor to die. Chapter 51. After the meeting, a piece of news is like a storm sweeping the entire martial god country in just a few hours. And, at an extremely fast speed, it spreads towards the entire 10 kingdoms of gods and profound gods, centered on the kingdom of martial god. June martial god as the most beautiful country, Jan Weong claims that he has married Ling Tian, the young man of the Shen's military mansion. And in the presence of 100 officials of the military, civil and military, swear that Ling Tian will not marry. June martial emperor, Zhen Xiaoyao was vomiting blood in public at the court meeting. When this news came out, the whole kingdom of martial god is completely exploded. Who is Jan Weong? She is the most beautiful woman in Junwu. She is dignified, extremely intelligent, kind and gentle. It is the first white moonlight in the hearts of countless male cultivators. However, now the flawless and beautiful white moonlight in their hearts was held in the palm of their hands. May I ask, who accepted this? According to abnormal statistics, there are at least 100,000 cultivators in the entire martial god country to compete with Ling Tian. The difference is that most of the female cultivators in the martial god country expressed their blessings to the two. There is a sentence in their mouths, "True love is invincible." In an instant, the hearts of the male cultivators who petitioned for a decisive battle with Ling Tian were broken into pieces. Finally, countless cultivators put down their sword. Then he walked to the restaurant without hesitation. Princess Weiyang, why is she getting married? Bah, don't talk nonsense, His Majesty Martial Emperor hasn't agreed to this marriage yet. Yes, Your Majesty is vomiting blood, he will definitely not agree. Don't say that Your Majesty disagrees. Even Daddy disagrees. Hee, how old are you, old boy? Brothers, stop arguing, now the attitude of the princess is so determined, who can make her change her mind in the world? Furthermore, she already has a skin relationship with Ling Tian. If she hadn't loved young Master Ling Tian so much, how could she act like this? It can be seen that the two are really in love. Stop talking. Daddy's bitter wine makes my heart hurt. Oh, Zhou Zhuang finally dreamed of the butterfly. She is a gift and a catastrophe. His Royal Highness is going to marry, and my youth is over. I, Zhang San, never want to suffer from love anymore. Little serve wine. At this moment, countless cities are staged in tiers of swordsmen, and people can't help but laugh with alcohol to dissolve their sorrows. Of course, when this news continues to ferment about Ling Tian and Jan Weiyang's love, it is also introduced into the fourth god tier sect of Junwu. In the Misty Ice Palace in the extreme north, a young girl wearing a pure white ice coat sitting on a piece of thousand-year-old profound ice. The lens falls, amazing in an instant. Her skin is as white as the purest ice and snow, the most flawless suet white jade. Even under the pure white snow clothes, her skin is still white and dazzling. Her face carved from ice and snow is adorned with slender eyebrows like a crescent moon. Fragrant cheeks win snow, beautiful and picturesque, and two delicate lips are like a pink rouge drawn by the sky with great effort. At the center of the eyebrows, a little red cinnabar. The beauty is thrilling. If the goddess descends from the earth, she is unparalleled. And at this moment, a beautiful figure flashed outside the ice palace. This is a slightly mature beautiful woman. Her name is Ji Shui. It's the master sister of the Misty Ice Palace. Junior sister. Still in cultivation, Ji Shui said amusedly as she looked at the girl in front of her who looked like a fairy of ice. The girl slowly opened her eyes and looked at Ji Shui and said softly, "Sister, did something happen?" Her voice is very nice, with the refreshing coldness and the warmth of the winter sun. Actually, nothing. There is a message from Wudu. I think you might be interested in junior sister. Ji Shui spread out her hands and chuckles. What news? A hint of doubt flashed in the girl's beautiful eyes. She is from Wudu, although she is indeed very sensitive to news from Wudu. Didn't you say that you have a childhood sweetheart named Ling Tian? Ji Shui spoke softly. Something happened to him. The girl Lu's eyebrows frowned lightly, and a cold chill flashed in her beautiful eyes. Forehead. Ji Shui couldn't help but smile when she looked at the girl like this. She knew that her junior sister was like a piece of schwanbing. The stronger the cultivation base, the harder it is to fluctuate in mood. But she was the only one who cared very much about the childhood sweetheart who grew up together. Even in the isolated ice palace, she tried every means to find out the news. Cough. Ji Shui coughed dryly. That's not. It's just that there was a news recently. Your childhood sweetheart may be getting married. Heard this, especially when the word, getting married. There is an obvious tremor in the girl's beautiful eyes. At the same time, a pair of jade hands clenched their fists unconsciously. But even if the mood swings like this, there was still no expression on her peerless nightmare. Moreover, she pretended to be indifferent. Oh. Who is it? I don't care anyway. You don't need to tell me. Yeah. Ji Shui looked at the girl with a smile on her face and smiled. You really don't want to know. I don't want to know. Senior sister, can I go? After that, Ji Shui turned around and wanted to leave. Do not. Seeing this, the girl hurriedly stopped her senior sister from leaving. Then he turned his head and asked Tsunere. Is she pretty? Ha. The smile on Ji Shui's face gradually deepened, as if she didn't intend to tell her. At this time, the girl finally couldn't help but raised her pitch by 3 points. Sister, I ask you, is she pretty? Puff. Ji Shui finally couldn't help but laughed out loud and then teased. Junior sister, junior sister. A girl should look like a girl. How cute you are like this. Hearing that, the girl gritted her silver teeth and closed her eyes. It seems that I really don't care about anything. Upon seeing, Ji Shui helplessly shook her head and muttered to herself. No matter how cold the heart is, she is really just a 19-year-old girl. After that, she pondered for a while and then she spoke. The woman who wants to marry Ling Tian is very beautiful. It is recognized that Junwoo is the most outstanding. I heard that I'm still a princess. You, do it for yourself. After that, she turned and left the ice palace. After Ji Shui leaves, the girl slowly opened her beautiful eyes. There are several complex rays of light in it. I don't know how long she was silent, she whispered. Ling Tian, you have grown up. You are going to get married. Or with that bad woman Jan Weong. But, did you really forget? At the beginning you said she was not the first person to marry. It's me, Yeba Kite. After all, she stood up. Then he mentioned the extremely gorgeous ice sword inserted on Xuanbing Hanshuang, going aggressively towards the outside of the ice palace. But just when she just walked out of the ice gate, a playful voice rang in her ears. Junior sister. Where do you want to go? Yi Zi turned her head, looked at Ji Shui, who was leaning against the door of the ice palace with her arms around her chest, and then seriously spit out 2 words. Go home. The bright light shines down. She has a beautiful side face, and the superior jawline with perfect curvature is extremely eye-catching. Ji Shui looked at the beautiful and dazzling Ye Kite in front of her, and couldn't help but sigh and smile. Yes, this bright girl from Wudu is finally going home. But said, on the official road thousands of miles away from Wudu, there is an army marching. Zoom in. This is an iron ride. Wearing black armors, they marched toward the distance in an orderly manner, like a black torrent. Take a closer look, and the flag-carrying general in the army is holding the bright red blood-like flag in his hand, with the big words, Divine Strategy, engraved on it. There is no doubt that this army is the Iron Cavalry of the most famous military mansion of the martial god kingdom. It is worth mentioning that Shen's cavalry is not on the way to fight at this time. Instead, it protects a gorgeous car crown and heads towards Wudu. General, we are already near Yuzhou City at this moment. According to our team's current speed, we can reach Wudu in about 7 days. At this time, a Shen's leader respectfully spoke to the woman who led the entire Shen's iron ride. Lens shift. The woman is wearing a red gold armor. With a red ribbon on the waist, 3,000 blue silks were tied up by her and tied into a high ponytail. It was very sassy. She rides on a white horse and leads the entire army of magic cavalry. The ultimate luxury and majesty are released from all over her body. The bright sunshine pours down. It was shining on her flawless dreamy face. Even if you don't use Fendai, it is already unparalleled. Her lips are like cherry petals, her eyes are like cold stars. Gaze closely at the distant sky, the corner of the mouth slowly raises a small smile. As if at the end of the sky, she had already seen the Shen's military mansion that she wanted to return to in her dreams. There are still 7 days. You can get home. At that time, I will be able to see that little idiot in my house. The woman whispered to herself softly, her beautiful eyes filled with longing. And this woman is the famous female martial sage of June martial god. It is also Ling Yao, the real power holder of the Shen's military mansion today. Seeing the appearance of my goddess general, the divine strategy leader seemed to think of something and then smiled and said, General, there have been rumors recently that the young palace lord and the long princess, Jan Weong, seem to be together. I heard that Her Royal Highness the princess is not our young palace master not to marry. Both of them seem to have skin-to-skin relations. Palace Young really has the means to take down our Majesty the most beautiful Princess Long. Ling Yao's expression remained unchanged, but a chill flashed in her eyes. But soon, the chill disappeared. Ah, Ling Yao spoke blankly. It doesn't matter if this rumor is true or not. If Jan Weong wants to marry into my Shen's military mansion, it's not that simple. If she can't pass my level, it's useless to say. And that fellow Ling Tian is really disobedient. Even scheming women like Jan Weong dare to touch. Listening to Ling Yao's unpleasant voice, the divine strategy leader couldn't help but shrink his neck. Then he quickly looked away without hearing anything. In the kingdom of June Martial God, there is probably only one who dares to say that the eldest princess Jan Weong is a scheming woman. Originally, he thought that Ling Yao would be very happy after hearing little brother find a love. But unexpectedly, the result was just the opposite. Is this the legendary brother control? And at this moment, the curtain of the crown of the car in the center, protected by the gods, slowly opened. A handsome man walked out. He smiled and said, "What General Ling Yao said is not correct." Jan Weiyang's fancy name spread throughout the 10 kingdoms of Shenshuan. If Palace Master Ling Tian can marry this beautiful woman, it must be worthy of this life. You do big sis, how can you interfere with your little brother's happiness? The prince feels that you might as well consider your own happiness rather than hindering your little brother's marriage. Perhaps someone who is destined is right in front of you. Ling Yao heard this, she turned her head to look at the man. Then coldly said, "His Royal Highness, you'd better return the chariot. I don't need you to talk too much about my Shen's military mansion. As for my happiness, it's not your business." Ha ha. Yu Mochen didn't care about Ling Yao's unceremonious words. He smiled faintly at Ling Yao, and then slowly walked back to the crown of the car. But even with heavy curtains, he still didn't look away from Ling Yao's body. He looked obsessedly at that riding on the white horse, heroic Ling Yao, whose perfect curve can be called the perfect goddess, can't even cover her red gold armor. It is said that Jan Weiyang is the most outstanding person in Junwu. But in the eyes of this prince, the real most stunning beauty is not necessarily Jan Weiyang. It seems that this prince needs to change the terms of the peace talks. June Martial God Country, Assembly Hall of Tibetan Sword Villa. At this time, there were only Ji Yu Qingshan, the owner of Tibetan Sword Villa, and his wife Roy in the hall. "Husband, do you say what Jun Xiaoyao said is true or false? Our son, can it really be controlled by Ling Tian's kid?" Roy Jade hands trembled lightly, and a graceful and beautiful face was full of chill. Luo City is aware of Jun Weiyang's obsession with that girl. If it is really like what Jun Xiaoyao said, it is really possible that Luokang is controlled by Ling Tian. However, things are still going on. The soul crystals in Los Angeles are still normal now. If they are exhausted, I must be able to know. Ji Yu Qingshan took out a crystal clear soul crystal and placed it in front of the Roy. This soul crystal was specially made by the couple to protect Ji Yu Luokang. It can monitor Ji Yu Luokang's health, cultivation base status, etc. As long as Ji Yu Luokang's body was a little strange, they could detect it. Seeing the undamaged soul crystal, Roy is finally relieved. "You said so too. But I still don't worry." Hearing this, Ji Yu Qingshan nodded and said, "If you don't rest assured, please go to Wudu and bring Luokang back in person, madam." I think so too." Roy nodded. Soon, the Roy took a large number of powerful people from the Tibetan Sword Villa and left the villa and headed for Wudu. At this time, it is not only the Tibetan Sword Villa. The Huguizong located at the extreme south of June Martial God also received a transmission from Jun Xiaoyao. Jun Xiaoyao said, he wanted to trade a woman with the exquisite heart of 9 orifices in exchange for the stability of his throne, right? In the Great Hall, the Parliament of the National Guard, an old man with a gully face wearing a white robe asked in a deep voice. "Return to the ancestors." Jun Xiaoyao did say that. A middle-aged man knelt before him and responded in a low voice. He is the sect leader of protecting the country, Junshan. He was supposed to be a high-ranking man and he was admired and worshipped by all. It can be said that the performance in front of this old man is extremely humble, and he even dare not hold it in the air. This is because this old man, he is the ancestor of the 3 vessels of protecting the country, and also the supreme emperor in the protecting country. He is the kind of supreme existence that can change the entire Junwu into the sky with a single word. Very good. Next, you first ask your trash son to go to the magic lock tower of the Martial Emperor's family academy, and bring that woman out to me. Then ask him to send him to Huguizong safely as soon as possible. Remember, be low-key. The secret of Juqiao Linglongshin must not be known to anyone. Otherwise, there will be big trouble. Hearing this, Jun Shan nodded in horror. then trembling and turned and left. Not long. A piece of news came from Huguizong to a magnificent mansion, Zhao Lihao, in the northern city of Wudu. This is Lord Marshal King, and it is also the site of sect leader Jun's. Jun's, you are only allowed to bring Ji Yu Qingcheng, who has the exquisite heart of 9 orifices, to me within 7 days. If it's late or something goes wrong, the ancestors will never let our father and son go. Listening to the heavy voice of his father in the sound transmission stone. Sect leader Jun's crushed the sound transmission stone to pieces with a look of disdain. Then he coldly looked in the direction of the lock tower and muttered to himself. This king has been reincarnated in this humble lower realm for so many years. I thought it would never be possible to return to the top again. However, now this king has actually encountered the legendary 9 orifices exquisite heart. Ha 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 ha. In that case, the king is not welcome. His name is Jun's. The last epoch was the great realm king of a certain upper star realm. In the middle stage of the battle between gods and demons, she fell into the cold hands of the Empress Devil Dao. But he didn't know why, and he finally got heavier. Came to this profound god continent 10 years ago. Became the waste prince of Huguizong with the same name and surname Jun's. He thought that he had no chance to return to the top. At this moment he finally ushered in a glimmer of light. Shen's military mansion, Taohuiyuan. Ling Tian held his hand and listened quietly to Ji Yu Luokong, the godson of the Tibetan Sword Villa, to what Jan Weong did today on the Fengji Hall. What can be seen is that at this moment his brow has been frowned into a word, Chuan. You mean, Jan Weong is in front of 100 officials in the Fengji Hall, saying that it's not me who won't marry. Then Zhun Xiaoyao vomited blood in public. Hearing this, Ji Yu Luokong, who was kneeling on the ground, nodded and said, Yes, master. I think this woman must be planning some unspeakable conspiracy. Master must guard against it. Although he was awakened from the soul-stirring seal, he was still Ji Yu Luokong. But at this moment, Ling Tian is the master of his life. Therefore, his every action and every word and deed are completely for Ling Tian's sake. Ling Tian heard the words, shook his head and muttered to himself. It's not like a conspiracy. I feel like a signal instead. A signal for her Jan Weong and Martial Emperor to have a showdown. To be honest, Jan Weong's operation today can be said to be completely beyond his expectations. His first thought was that if Jan Weong allowed him, then he could deceive Zhun Xiaoyao temporarily, without having to publish the things about himself and her last night. Let him think that he has received the support of the Tibetan Sword Villa, and then relax the police. I can use this opportunity to control Ji Yu Luokong and gradually let Zhun Xiaoyao fall into the trap I set for him. But what he didn't expect was that Jan Weong would break with Zhun Xiaoyao directly and rudely. He also vomited blood with sharp words. This really caught him off guard. But, what is her purpose for doing this? Ling Tian whispered to himself. And just when Ling Tian's thoughts were turned over, there were wise soldiers who came to report. Report, young palace master. His Royal Highness Princess, Zhun Weong is here. Hearing that, I haven't waited for Ling Tian to speak. I saw a beautiful shadow slowly walked into the peach blossom courtyard. She is Zhun Weong. Today's Zhun Weong, dressed in a gorgeous moon dress, is as cold and noble as the goddess of the moon palace. The face of a snowy, white and beautiful face is as indifferent as water, but it is still beautiful, so amazing. You, why are you here? Ling Tian looked a little embarrassed on the person's face. The night he kissed her last night, he still feels blushing when he thinks about it. Because it's crazy. How? This Shen's mansion, can't this palace come? Zhun Weiyang's beautiful eyes stared tightly at Ling Tian's plain opening. Although she looks calm at this moment. But only she knows that this is all she pretended. What happened last night is not only Ling Tian's memory renewed. She seems to remember more deeply. Even she remembered. Last night, it seemed that she took the initiative. Every time she thinks of this, she is ashamed and angered. But fortunately, she had done enough psychological construction before she came, and she could keep calm when she saw Ling Tian again. Listening to the conversation between the two, there was a touch of enlightenment on the face of the divine strategy soldier who came to inform. This seems alienated, but it brings with it a way of dialogue with grievances. Look at the extremely delicate state of these two people. It can be said that it is a little couple fighting at the end of the bed. Then he hurriedly left the scene in a pragmatic way. Ahem. Ling Tian coughed dryly, calmed down his mind and asked. Biff, you come to me this time. It should be here to talk about cooperation. That's right. Jan Weong confessed happily, and said bluntly to Ling Tian without the slightest concealment. Ling Tian, Jun Xiaoyao and your Shen's Junfu can only save one, you should know it. And now, Jun Xiaoyao and I can only save one. Since you and I have a common goal, why don't we work together? Wen Yan, Ling Tian raised his eyebrows. He bought the water of life last night to pull Jan Weong out of the abyss, the purpose is to pull him into the own camp. But I didn't expect that I didn't lift her up, but fell into that crazy abyss with her. He thought that after last night, his cooperation with Jan Weong would be completely useless. But I didn't expect Jan Weong to take the initiative to come to the door to seek cooperation. This is an unexpected joy. Cooperation can, but you have to explain it clearly to me. Today you said at the Fengji Hall that it was not me who did not marry. Why did you break with the martial emperor? Is it just to stun the snake? Ling Tian looked at Jan Weong straight and asked. Hearsay. Jan Weong's pretty face changed, and he snorted coldly. Naturally, it's to fight the grass and startle the snake. Is it possible that you think that your house really wants to marry you? Don't think that your house is the kind of woman you do not marry. Ling Tian heard the words and spread his hands. He is not so narcissistic. I never think that after last night, Jan Weong completely fell in love with him. This woman is not silly and sweet. And the most important point is that I didn't want to have anything to do with her at all. If it weren't for that big devil. Don't mention it. Ling Tian sighed lightly, and then spoke to Jan Weong with a calm face. So you have a showdown with Jun Xiaoyao in the Phoenix Palace. The purpose is to break the way he wants to catch the Hidden Sword Villa. After all, if he doesn't have the support of Hidden Sword Villa, then he will have to face the pressure of the National Guardian to let him stand alone. Jun Weong sneered. Not stupid, just 1 point. Then guess how he will face the threat from Hu Guozong next. Ling Tian was silent for a moment. In the information he knew, Jun Xiaoyao's ancestor fell in the line of Hu Guozong. This led to the complete decline of his faction. The background is down, so it is inevitable to let such a greedy monarch martial god be the monarch. There is no room for negotiation at all. So if you want to keep the throne, then Jun Xiaoyao must come up with something more tempting than the throne. Thought of here, Ling Tian suddenly brightened his eyes and said in a deep voice. It's Ji Yu Qingcheng, 9 orifices Ling Long Heart. That's right, Jun Weong said with a smile. Now Jun Weong has no other way except to take Ji Yu Qingcheng, protect the throne, and change peace. And this palace has confirmed that he will definitely take Ji Yu Qingcheng in exchange for his own throne to be stable. Don't you guys want the 9 orifices exquisite heart? This palace has confirmed that Jun Xiaoyao will personally lift her out of the demon locking tower. Then how to get her from now on is up to you. After hearing this, Ling Tian's eyes lit up. The magic lock tower of the Martial Emperor's family academy is guarded by a strong defensive force. 3 of the top 10 Junwu experts. June Martial Emperor's home academy Town Demon Army. There is also the mysterious dean of the Martial Emperor Family Academy. Relying on this level of defense, I can't force Ji Yu Qing to take away Ji Yu Qingcheng. But when Ji Yu Qingcheng got out of the locked magic tower, the situation was completely different. If you have the ability, then cut off Jun Xiaoyao's survival path. Then, even if he is completely driven to desperation, if you lose Juchao Linglongshin, you and I don't need to act. The old guys who protect the country, the first one will not let him go. Jun Weong hugged his arms and spoke coldly. A beautiful face was dissatisfied with frost. It can be seen that she really hates Jun Xiaoyao. After that, she was silent and said again. In addition, Jun Xiaoyao will give the 9 orifices exquisite heart to Junes, the young sect leader of the Guardian sect who lives in Wudu. He will probably personally escort Ji Yu Qingcheng back to protect the country. So, consider how to do it yourself. Hearing this, Ling Tian nodded and said. I see. Humph. Jun Weong hummed softly. Junes is not easy. Although he is the well-known abandoned son of the Hu Guozong. But I can tell you that he is not easy. So, to be on the safe side, you'd better call Yi Qinglo. After speaking, Jan Weong did not turn around and walked outside the peach blossom garden. Finally, I'm afraid you don't know, let me tell you again. Jun Xiaoyao also transmitted the sound to the Tibetan sword villa. He has guessed that Jiyu Luokong may be controlled by you. You better prepare early. Ling Tian looked at Jun Weiyong's back. He was silent for a long time. It is good for Jun Weiyong to seek cooperation. But here comes the problem. How did Jun Weiyong know all the plans and deployments of Jun Xiaoyao? At this moment, Ling Tian suddenly thought of a possibility. But in the end he shook his head and said to himself, if it is what I think it is, then Jun Weiyong is really terrible. Ling Tian suppressed all the thoughts in his heart. Subsequently, began to deploy combat strategies. I want to take Jiyu Qingcheng from Huguizong. Also face the pressure from the Tibetan sword villa. He must use all the resources he can use. Come for perfect deployment and planning, and there will be no mistakes. So, he picked up the sound transmission stone and summoned Ling Jian and other high levels of the Weeping Blood building and began to make rigorous arrangements. At the same time, he is also preparing to go to the Tianyi army mansion to find his terrifying girlfriend of the great demon Lang Han. The war will rise, without her. How can it work? Tianyi Junfu. On the Wangyu Tower that overlooks the entire Wudu. Sitting coldly in front of a mahogany table. Very seriously holding a book and watching. A glamorous and unparalleled pretty face is full of seriousness, nodding or frowning from time to time. The light and dark in the beautiful eyes are mixed, and the smile gives birth to flowers. And at this moment, maid Yuehan came to Wang Yu upstairs and reminded softly. Palace Lord, Shen's military mansion, Ling, Tian Gongzi, please see you. Hearing the words, cold Lu Mei frivolous. Then he said. Not see. The lord of the palace is closed door training. Seeing no one, she thought to herself, the way of love is really broad and profound. However, she believes that she has more than 80% insight. Yu Han looked at the piles of books on the mahogany table of her mansion in surprise. When she saw the names of these books, she couldn't help but turned her cheeks flush and hurried away. There are many books on this. 36 types of love. About the secret technique of love between couples. Handbook for enhancing relationship between couples. On the way of getting along between couples. How to make him fall in love with you. As well as, the copy in Lang Han's hands. He runs away, she chases after him, he can't escape with his wings. Oh my god, Palace Master, you want to fall in love, right? Yuehan exclaimed in a low voice. Then he came to the outside of Tianyi Junfu and said to Ling Tian. Young Master Ling Tian, Lord Palace Master is in closed door training, no one sees. Ling Tian heard this, he scratched his head. Heart said, Lang Han, the big devil, won't be really ready to teach me to fall in love anymore. After that, he shook his head and turned and left the Tianyi army mansion. There is still some time. He believed that with his cold understanding, he should be out soon. However, can she really become a master of love in one tab? Regarding this point, Ling Tian is very skeptical. Yuehan returns to Tianyejin. At this time Lang Han had closed the romance novel in his hand. After that, she stood up and stood on the top of Wangyu Tower with her hands. The skirt floats slowly with the night breeze. Call. She took a deep breath and slowly closed her eyes. Whispered. He ran away from her. Ha ha ha. Interesting. Seeing Yuehan, she opened her mouth slightly and her face was shocked. For some reason, she always felt that her Lang Ruizu Palace Master looked like a different person. And at this moment, Langan has slowly turned around to look at Yuehan and asked. Xiaohan, have you ever been in love? Hearing this, Yu Han hurriedly lowered his head and said with a blushing face and timidly. Return to Palace Master. Yuehan has never been in love. Tianyi army mansion did not stipulate that the maid could not fall in love. But once you fall in love, you can't serve in the Tianyi army mansion. Can only be dispatched to work in places other than Tianyi army mansion. Although Yuehan wanted to fall in love very much, she wanted to stay in Tianyejin's mansion more than sweet love. Humph. Lang Han hummed softly upon hearing the words. I think so. With your kind of savvy, I am afraid that you will not be able to understand the way of love in your life. Yuehan opened her mouth slightly when she heard it. I thought to myself, Falling in love is not about cultivating the Tao. Why do you need such a high level of comprehension? Isn't it okay to be happy with each other? Of course she did not dare to speak out in front of the cold face. Can only respond in a low voice. My Lord Palace said it. And her voice just fell. A shadow of affection enveloped her. She suddenly raised her head and greeted her eyes as a glamorous and unparalleled beauty. It is so long that she has been with Yi Ching Jaluo for so long, and she is also baffled with breathlessness. And at this moment, Lang Han stretched out her jade hand and slowly pinched her chin. The voice speaks with a voice that charms the common people with the unique magnetic charm of Oni-san. Hey, you are so cute. Hearing that, Yuehan's heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She looked at Yi Qingluo's red lips like a knife-edge rose. My throat can't help but roll. A pair of beautiful eyes gradually became a little blurred and fallen. Ha ha, cold and cold, see, the effect is not bad. So he let go of the hand on Yuehan's chin. And as soon as this hand is released, Yuehan immediately collapsed to the ground with weak legs. The beautiful face is full of blush. She didn't have the courage to raise her head and take another cold look. It seems we can go to Ling Tian, that fool, to practice. Looking down at Yuehan's desperate look at her feet, Han Han said. Yuehan, you remembered it. This trick is called Ruo Ji Ruo Li. If you fall in love in the future, you can use this trick to be surprisingly difficult. Then he turned around and disappeared in Wangyu Tower. At this moment, only Yuehan is left sitting on the ground with a face full of confusion. I didn't even listen to the cold words. After a while, she only hugged her knees with her hands, buried her head in her legs, and whispered. How to do? I was so gaffy just now. Palace Master Yi Qingluo, like this is too killing me. Do I like women? Indeed, just now she faced such a sudden attack from Lang Han. She is a woman and she can't stand it at all. Started the first time in her life, doubting life. Shen's military mansion, Peach Blossom Garden. Ling Tian arranged a surveillance task for Ling Jian and other elites in the Weeping Blood building. With the power of the Weeping Blood Tower, if all were dispatched, then it can be said that the entire Wudu situation can be controlled in his hands. Finally, Ling Tian instructed Ji Yu Luokong, ordering him to keep an eye on the movements of his hidden sword villa at any time. Once the people of the Tibetan sword villa arrived in Wudu, he can also know the first time. Everything's ready. Ling Tian spit out a mouthful of foul breath. Then he returned to the own room. Open the own system task panel. Host, Ling Tian. Cultivation base. Sealing the king in 8 realms. Constitution, evil heart against the world. Fetters, demon heart chaos body. Comprehension, 50, can be enhanced with the increase of physique. Weapons, contemplating flute, oracle's knife, Tang clan number. 1 hidden weapons, Buddha Fury Tang Lian, can be used once. Cultivation technique, trilogy of contemplating soul, star god broken shadow, ultimate dragon technique, heaven defying 7 magic knife. Skills, eye of insight, audition couple skill. The 7 world defying realms, transforming god opened. Mandate reserve, 143,500 mandate. Number of puppets, 53, list expandable. Soul robbing puppet, Ji Yu Luokong, 100% loyalty. The Wanji Mall has been opened, and the mission system has been opened. Just as Ling Tian watched that, he had reached the destiny reserve of 140,000. When thinking about whether or not to spend some mandate points, and then prepare for a killer copper, he suddenly looked stagnant. A beautiful shadow fell into his peach blossom garden. She is out, Ling Tian muttered to himself with some surprise. Then he walked out the door. I saw it against the moonlight. A stunning appearance that could overwhelm the world came into view. Under the slightly tilted moonbrows, those eyes that are looking at Ling Tian are misty. It seems to be overflowing with smoke, and it contains the magic that makes people desperate. Looking coldly at Ling Tian, who was slightly absent-minded, like a knife-edged rose, it evokes a shallow arc. Ling Tian, let's start dating. Death. Wudu is known as the city that never sleeps. Even in the middle of the night, the streets of Wudu are still overcrowded. Many restaurants are still full of voices. Ling Tian was stunned and pulled out of Shen's mansion to the most prosperous night market on Black Tortoise Street in Wudu. The first date of the two began. A constant stream of people. A brightly lit night market. And the very noisy restaurants on both sides of the street. This made Ling Tian truly react. Lang Han, this is really going to have a date with him. Not the kind of laughing. So, where are we going? Ling Tian asked with some doubts. Hearing this, the cold expression suddenly became stagnant and said. The emperor was so anxious that he forgot to set a date. How to do so many love moves, there must be scenes that can be applied. Ahem. Ling Tian coughed dryly and said. Or else. Let's go to the Wudu night market first. After all, Wudu night market is notoriously prosperous. Good too. Lengan breathed a sigh of relief. 757. She and Ling Tian walked side by side. The two were walking in the hustle and bustle of the night market. Let Ling Tian feel strange. Not many people looked towards the cold. Originally, he was still distressed, will this kind of cold appearance and body cause big congestion? But now, he is worrying too much. Lang Han seemed to see through Ling Tian's mind and then said. Hey, this seat has used a special technique to hide his appearance and figure. In the eyes of outsiders, this seat is just a very ordinary woman. I see. Ling Tian nodded. It's not ashamed to be cold, and my mind is so delicate. If you don't take any cover up, I'm afraid that if the date fails, it will cause a lot of trouble. At this time Lang Han saw a little sugar seller. Her beautiful eyes suddenly brightened. Then he opened his mouth to Ling Tian. Wait for me a while. Ling Tian was stunned for a moment. But soon, Lang Han took a sugar man to Ling Tian and shook it. Do you like sugar people? Ling Tian asked with some surprise. After Lang Han heard this, she glanced at Ling Tian. Tan's mouth opened slightly, and he lightly took a bite of sugar man. Then she put the sugar man in front of Ling Tian and said. Hey, you have a bite, it's very sweet. Talk about it. Ling Tian heard the cold heart. Humph, this trick is so loud that it can narrow the distance between each other without knowing it. Hearing that, Ling Tian wants to laugh a little. Good guy, the cold devil, really treats love as a battle. He even made up names for these routines. But I have to say that these moves are too old-fashioned. Sure enough, I'm still a novice. Ling Tian shook his head. He decided to teach Lang Han a lesson today. Ahem. Ling Tian gave a dry cough. He looked at the sugar man who had been coldly placed in front of him, and then hesitated slightly. How unhygienic this is. Look, you have eaten it. Or I'll buy another one, it's not expensive anyway. What, he even dislikes this emperor. Lang Han looked at Ling Tian in disbelief. In her expectation, Ling Tian will eat the sugar man she has eaten with a shy face. Then the heartbeat directly soared 3 times. However, she didn't think that Ling Tian would offer to buy another one. She was really caught off guard. Conversation between the two. It caused a lot of onlookers in the night market. This boy is too straightforward. Oh, how many years will it take to be single to say such a thing? This boy is too much. To dislike my own girlfriend. It seems that this man doesn't love this girl. But that's true, looking at the boy's appearance and temperament, this girl is indeed not worthy of it. Oh, the girl paid by mistake. Lang Han listened to the surrounding discussion. She held back the anger in her heart. Then he said to himself. Just failed once. Next, the emperor must be serious. Listening to the cold heart. Ling Tian chuckled in her heart. Xindao, you just let go. Ling Han stared at Ling. Then he ate all the sugar people in his hands in one breath. Then the two quickly walked out of the night market. Come to the place with the most couples in Wudu Sakura Street. In this street, cherry blossoms bloom all year round. Even the smell of this cherry blossom is floating in the air. Many couples are talking about love under the cherry tree. And at this moment, Cold and Cold said, the opportunity is here. It is recorded in the 36 strategies of love that couples should inadvertently hold hands on their first date, so that they will feel electrocuted. Wen Yan, Ling Tian has light eyebrows. Pretending to be ignorant, I was very comfortable admiring the cherry blossoms flying all over the sky. And the cold beautiful eyes quickly locked Ling Tian's hand. She whispered to herself, next, don't move too fast. And don't be too deliberate, just be natural. Thought of here. She walked quickly to Ling Tian's side. Then Miso looked at the cherry blossoms in the sky. Jade hand swing. Her fingertips accidentally touched Ling Tian's fingertips. Between fingertips, Nourish. An electric current rushes from fingertips to the tip of my heart. It really feels like an electric shock. The cold and beautiful Lu Mei frivolous, he was very surprised. Just as she completely grasped Ling Tian's hand while the iron was hot. But to see, Ling Tian suddenly opened her hand and said, "It's so hot today. Look, we both rubbed and charged. We better stay away." Lang Han Wen Yan. Her pretty face was completely cold. How much does this guy dislike her to say such a thing? You know this is the first date. Asshole. What 36 love skills? What? He ran away from her chasing, all shit. Love or something. The most annoying, the most troublesome. Lang Han cursed in his heart, and then gave Ling Tian a fierce look. Turn around and leave. She decided to wait until she returned to Tianyi Army Mansion to burn all the love secrets in the library. If it is possible to kill all the authors who wrote these love books in the future. And at this moment, a hand suddenly caught her. Her delicate body suddenly stagnated. Turning around, she saw Ling Tian's face with a faint smile. Cherry blossoms. Her beautiful eyes stared at Ling Tian blankly. Suddenly, she felt that the man in front of her became a little confused. She wanted to speak up, but she endured it without knowing why. At this moment, Ling Tian suddenly exerted force. Embrace her. Forehead. She was embraced by Ling Tian. The brain became a mess. I forgot all the tricks I learned before. A strange feeling hits my heart. At this moment, Ling Tian buried her head on her shoulders and said softly in her ear. The feeling of electric shock is actually nothing bad. It was too far away from you just now it's fine, it's close enough. You. Lang Han heard this, she bit her silver teeth and asked with a soft voice and a little unconvinced. You. What are your moves? Ha ha. Ling Tian thought for a while to let go of the cold. Then he stretched out her hand and rolled the green silk scattered on her forehead behind her ears. What catches the eye is a stunningly beautiful unparalleled face. Ling Tian doesn't know, is this face really cold? However, I have to admit, she is indeed beautiful. So he spoke in a wicked way. It's nothing special. I just hope, to the one you love. Hug to be true. Kissing needs to be deep. Talk about it. Ling Tian didn't know where his courage came from. Slowly leaned over, under the cold and somewhat dull gaze. Moi. Under the cherry tree. The two embraced in the moonlight. The air is filled with the refreshing fragrance of flowers. This is the first date of the two. Moonlight is pink. The first kiss is the smell of cherry blossoms. About this night. Whether it is Ling Tian. Still the big devil is cold. They remember it for a long time. It's so long that time can't be forgotten again. It's late at night. As soon as Lang Han returned to Tianyi Army Mansion, he lay directly on his soft big bed. Beautiful eyes stared at the ceiling blankly, then inexplicably raised her jade finger and gently touched her own flower lips. When the fingertips touched, memories are flooded. The scene of her kissing Ling Tian just now under the cherry blossom tree appeared in her mind in an instant. She even smelled the scent of cherry blossoms, and the smell of Ling Tian echoed in her mouth. At this moment, she retracted her own jade hand like an electric shock. At the same time, her reflex arc seems to have finally returned to normal. She stood up solemnly, her jade hand clenched her fist tightly. With a cold and pretty face, he yelled at the sky with a hint of shame and anger. Presumptuous and presumptuous, how dare this guy? The emperor is. She wanted to say that she was master. But when she thought, she is now more than Ling Tian's master. When she was Ling Tian's girlfriend, she finally swallowed the words back. After a long time, Lengen recovered his calm, and he hugged his chest with both hands and promised. Fine, since this is a date proposed by this seat. Furthermore, this time it is considered that this seat is not as good as the others, and the game is not as good as it is. Fortunately, that guy has the upper hand. So this emperor will let you play for a while. But if you wait until the next date, this emperor won't be defeated by you so easily. If Ling Tian heard this, she would be surprised. Because Lang Han actually regarded this love with own as a battle. And she must win. She really is not an ordinary person. At this moment, her glamorous and unparalleled beauty is full of determination, full of desire to win this battle. But when she looked at the bright moon in the sky and the falling petals of cherry blossoms in the sky, her expression suddenly stagnated. My throat rolled unconsciously. Belle's teeth bit her lips tightly. Let alone success or failure today. Just talk about today's date is indeed her first cold date experience. Holding hands for the first time. First hug. First kiss. It all seems to be pretty good. Thought of this. The corner of her mouth made a slight arc. Then she sat down at the own desk. Pick up the pen. What is being outlined on a piece of white paper? Zoom in. Discover. Lang Han had already begun a clear formation for the second date with Ling Tian. And the more she writes, the more excited she is, the more she writes, the more looking forward to it. It's just that she doesn't know. Her cruel devil Dao Empress is cold. Is it because I am looking forward to the next victory? Or because she is looking forward to the next date? Shen's army mansion. Ling Tian sits on her own bed. The moonlight quietly fell on him from the eaves of the window. At this moment, there is a halo on his body. The purest vitality and energy between the heavens and the earth are constantly replenished to his body, which firmly holds the cultivation base of his 8th realms. Compared to cold, Ling Tian looks much calmer. Even when he took the initiative to kiss the big devil under the cherry tree just now when it was cold. The heart is about to jump out. But now, his emotions can be described as unwavering. After all, Lang Han kissed him. And, now he is still alive. Then that's enough. Don't worry about the rest. Open the task panel of the system. Ling Tian was surprised to find that after a date, the value of herself and her cold couple had reached 20%. This is a full 10% of ascension. If we continue to follow this rhythm, I believe that soon, he will be able to complete the first main task. And for the second date, Ling Tian also made a simple idea. This time, Lang Han is completely in my hands. Then next time, I have to find a way to take the initiative to let Lang Han gain the upper hand. Ling Tian touched his chin and nodded. He has a different view of love from Lang Han. Lang Han feels that love is a battle, and she wants to win. And Ling Tian feels that there is no winning or losing between love. As long as the hearts of the two are close, they are all big winners. So, the next date, he decided to take the initiative to get into the cold routine. Let her soak herself fiercely once. Feel the joy of victory. This might also be another flavor. Maybe you will get a different effect too. Ling Tian smiled and nodded, and immediately closed his eyes. Begin to use the world-destroying realm transforming the gods to cultivate with peace of mind. At this moment, he can't waste a minute and a second. Because he had already smelled the wind and rain of Wudu. But he is not nervous at all. After all, everything in Wudu is now under his control. Now, he just needs to wait for an opportunity. The battlefield of the gods at night is extremely hot. Hundreds of thousands of onlookers watched Devil Dao Sword Fairy Ji Yuxian's 8-game winning streak tonight. Above the arena, Ji Yuxian holds a moon blade. A stunning face that was more beautiful than Hao Yu was full of cold and pretty colors. The jade hand waved, and the moon blade swept across the void. The terrifying sword Qi instantly split the body of a strong Devil Dao in half. Splashing blood, there was a loud cheering in the arena of gods. Among the gladiators in the entire Wudu, Ji Yuxian is the most popular. Because of her beauty, the methods are harsh, not muddy at all, very ornamental. Tonight, this Devil Dao cultivator is already the 8th strong man who fell under her sword. Call. Ji Yuxian took a beautiful look. The headless corpse on the ground slowly exhaled. Then she looked up at the white sky. The night is passing. A new day is approaching. She was very excited. However, it was not because of today's 8-game winning streak. Rather, today she can go to the Martial Emperor's home academy to see her little sister at the locked magic tower. I haven't seen that girl for a while. If you want to, she must have grown a lot taller. Ji Yuxian thought of this, with a warm smile on her face. This smile, extremely beautiful. Just look at the cultivator who was onlookers. And at this moment, Ji Yuxian's sound transmission stone sounded. This is Celine, a tutor from the Martial Emperor's family academy. Since she was kicked out of the Hidden Sword Villa, it was Celine who raised her. Xian, come back quickly. The magic tower was opened just now. Sect leader Junes took the Martial Emperor token and brought Qingcheng out of the locked magic tower. Hear this transmission. Ji Yuxian's face changed. It turned into a black light and left the arena of the gods and shot towards it. Chingchong, if anyone dares to move you, Big Sis will fight hard with whom? June Martial Emperor Family Academy. Outside the gate of Sha Ting Shui Gong. A graceful and luxurious woman is walking back and forth with a sad face. She is wearing a purple dress, which outlines her tight and hot figure. Her name is Celine, and she is recognized as the first beauty tutor of the Martial Emperor's Family Academy. She has a fascinating look. She is the dream lover of many cultivators in the entire Wudu city, and even in the Martial God Kingdom. And the status is extremely high. Even Jan Weong must respectfully salute when she sees her. This is because her father is the dean of the Martial Emperor's Family Academy. It's her. 10 years ago, he took in Ji Yuxian, who was kicked out of the Hidden Sword Villa. At this moment, an aurora flashed in the distance. Ji Yuxian has already returned to Sha Ting Academy in a hurry. Aunt Lin, hurry up and tell me what happened. Why did sect leader Junes take away Chingchong? Where did he take Chingchong? See Ji Yuxian with a pretty pale face. Celine sighed and said, actually, I don't know the specific reason for this incident either. I only know that this matter is an order from His Majesty Martial Emperor himself. And Junes seems to want to bring Chingchong back to guarding state sect. But don't worry, as far as I know they are still staying in Wudu City. No, I want to save her back. Ji Yuxian shook her head, her pretty face became very cold. Her little sister possesses more powerful talents and treasures than her. Because of this, she knows very well what kind of allure is her little sister for any male cultivator in the world. Xian, don't be impulsive. This order was personally issued by His Majesty Martial Emperor, and it also involved the Guardian sect. This matter is too big. I think we have to wait for my father to come back and make long-term discussions. Celine tried her best to comfort Ji Yutian, who was about to run away. Hearing this, Ji Yuxian shook her head and said, Aunt Lin, I can't wait. Chingchong, she has an exquisite heart of 9 orifices. Every day she is in the hands of others, and I can't worry about it every day. Ah, Celine sighed. The allure of Juchao Linglongshin to a cultivator is indescribable. Don't say it's in the profound God continent. Even if you look at the entire 9 heavens, and even the big guys in the Shinto camp, no one can resist. Okay, if you must go, Aunt Lin will accompany you. I am here, although I don't know if I can rescue Allure. But at least it can keep you safe. And just when his voice just fell, 3 tall figures wearing armors slowly fell into the Sha Ting Academy. The dean has an order. Celine and Ji Yuxian. No more questions about Ji Yu Chingchong. Today, you must not leave the Martial Emperor's Family Academy for half a step. The huge voice fell like the voice of heaven. The entire Zukong and June Martial Emperor's Family Academy are shaking for it. Boom. Both Shilin and Ji Yuxian were shocked by the 3 momentums. When you look at the people who come, a touch of shock flashed in their eyes. Sword Sage Li Mofeng, Angry Lion Saint Pei Tianan, Nether Saint Zhao Xuanting. These 3 are the 3 of the 10 strongest in Junwu. They are also the 3 highest-ranking members of the Martial Emperor's Family Academy, excluding the dean. On weekdays, these 3 should guard the magic tower. If you want to see one side of it, it can be said to be difficult to add. But now, the 3 have appeared together. 3 seniors. Chingchong, she is my junior. Father, he should know, dare to ask if he really made this order. Celine frowned Lu's eyebrows and asked in disbelief. Are the 3 of us here, can't we explain the problem? Nether Saint Zhao Xuanting spoke indifferently. If I must save my little sister. Ji Yuxian held my sword hilt and asked, clenching her silver teeth. The mad sword saint glanced blankly at Ji Yutian and immediately said, if it is Celine, then I will abolish her in the cultivation base and throw her into the locked tower and imprison her for 100 years. But if you insist on disobeying the dean's order, then, I will expel you from the academy, and you will not be allowed to enter the academy in the next 100 years. The voice falls. Ji Yuxian understood. The dean's harsh orders were only directed at Mentor Celine. No, it should not be said to be aimed at, it should be said to protect own daughter. And as for her, who cares about her life and death? She is going to save her biological little sister. Who can do it? In that case, please also 3 seniors to make a way for me. Ji Yuxian Yu gripped the scabbard tightly, and said in a deep voice. Please do it yourself. The three saints moved away and made way for Ji Yuxian. Thank you. Ji Yuxian nodded and then walked outside the Shating Academy without knowing her head. Do not want. Celine looked at Ji Yuxian with a decisive look and took her hand in a daze. She looked at Ji Yuxian pleadingly, her voice trembled and pleaded. Xian, if you go this time, it may never come back again. You are thinking about it. Ji Yuxian came back and looked at Celine. The pretty face lifted up a faint smile and whispered softly. Aunt Lin, Qingcheng, she is my little sister. I don't care about her, who cares? Heard this sentence. Celine's eyes darkened and she slowly let go of Ji Yuxian's hand. At this moment, Ji Yuxian stretched out her hand and gently hugged Celine, and then choked up and said. Thank you for your 10 years of care. From now on, without me, you have to take care of yourself. You must be good. After that, she resolutely turned and left. Looking at Ji Yuxian's back, Celine's nose was sour, and tears instantly blurred her eyes. She clearly knows. This time, if Ji Yuxian went, it may not be able to return as before. Ah! Sword Saint Li Mofeng saw this scene, he sighed and said. Ji Yuxian, I remind you again, if you step out of the gate of the Martial Emperor's Family Academy, I won't be a student of the college anymore. When Ji Yuxian heard the words, she was in a halt. Then disappeared directly into the vision of several people. Oh, what a pity. Ji Yuxian, the saint of mad swordsman Li Mofeng, sighed, who looked at his head and wouldn't leave. This girl is such a character. President, I have already guessed it. This is the path she chose, we can't stop it. The angry lion Saint Pei Tianan shook his head. To be honest, Ji Yuxian is really the best and strong girl I have ever seen. It's just a pity. After today, there will be no Ji Yuxian in the world. Nether Saint Zhao Xuanting spoke very regretfully. 3 seniors, Wang Zhao's, is there really no room for recovery in this matter? Celine looked at the 3 saints pleadingly. She also held the last glimmer of hope to save Xian. Celine girl, don't think about it. This matter is the will of the ancestors of the 3 vessels of protecting the country. Even the dean can't help it. Looking at the entire kingdom of martial god, no one dares to disobey that lord. Celine hears the words. Her beautiful eyes gradually dimmed. She is desperate, but what she didn't know was, there are no absolutes in the world. The 3 saints said that no one in the entire martial god country dared to disobey the ancestor who protected the country. This sentence is obviously very wrong. Because if you count down, there is no end to the ancestor of Hu Guizhong to put in one's eyes. There is more than one in Wudu City. But at this moment, with Devil Dao, the moment when he walked out of the Martial Emperor's Family Academy, destined to be the beginning of the chaos of the entire Wudu Shen's army mansion, Ling Tian stands in the peach blossom garden with his hands. The intelligence from the Weeping Blood building kept ringing in his sound transmission jade. Report to the master that the 3 saints have come and forced Ji Yuxian to withdraw from the Martial Emperor's Academy. Tell the master that Ji Yuxian has already reached Taohua Alley in the southern city of Wudu. Report to the master that Ji Yuxian has already set foot on Yinlong Street. Report to the master that Ji Yutayan has arrived in Wudu North City and arrived in Tongtian Garden. Report to the master that Ji Yutayan is about to arrive at the palace of King Jun's. Listening to the news one after another, Ling Tian's expression is very calm. Today Wudu's situation is in his palm. Originally, his plan was to wait until Jun Zi took Ji Yu Qingcheng to intercept them on the way back to Hu Guizhong. But if Ji Yuxian is so hard on Jun's palace today, then it will obviously disrupt his layout and plans. And just when he was about to order Ling Jian to stop him and receive him from the Shen's military mansion, a clear system task reminder sounded in his ear. Ding! According to the situation, the host triggers the system god level selection dungeon to reincarnate. If you choose one, the host chooses to accept a copy of destroyed reincarnation to get a system god level lottery permission. Option 2. The host chooses to give up a copy of destroyed reincarnation to obtain a pair of 1000-year mysterious tortoise armor. Upon hearing this, Ling Tian froze for a moment and then asked in his mind. System, what exactly is the disappeared reincarnation dungeon? Ding! The system prompts, the host can view the information of the dungeon task destroyed reincarnation in the system task panel. Hearing that, Ling Tian hurriedly opened the character panel of the system. God Dungeon shattered and reincarnated. Dungeon description. Ask the host to kill Junes the reincarnated. Dungeon reward. The third bronze coffin. Dungeon punishment. If Junes is not dead within 3 hours, the system will erase all the host's cultivation base. Good fellow. No wonder, Jan Weong would say that this guy is not easy. It turns out that the young sect leader who protects the country is a reincarnated person. Ling Tian was a little surprised. Then he suddenly thought of a possibility, with a look of one. If Junes was a reincarnated person, would he still obediently hand over Ji Yu Qingcheng to the Guardian sect? You must know that every reincarnated person in his previous life is the pinnacle powerhouse above 9 heavens. Such a character, can he take the initiative to offer the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices for the sake of the ancestor of the protector of the country? Absolutely impossible. Ling Tian spoke affirmatively. Ding. Please choose whether to accept the task. Hear the prompt sound of the system. Ling Tian spoke directly without the slightest hesitation. I accept. Joke. Ji Yu Qingcheng, who has the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices, is the key to unlocking the second seal of his world-defying 7 realms. If someone else takes it away, then his 7 world-defying stages, wouldn't it be impossible to unblock them forever? Moreover, what is the concept of the bronze coffin of the third world rewarded by this dungeon? This is the most terrifying and mysterious existence in the sky-covering universe and the perfect universe. Although Ling Tian didn't know whether it would be a blessing or a curse if he got the third copper coffin. But at this moment, he really has no choice. I must take this copy. If it succeeds, so the heaven-defying system reward is enough to make his combat power ascension to a new dimension. Finally, now the whole Junwu situation has become white-hot. Ling Tian can already clearly feel the pressure from the 2 great spiritual practice sects. In Tibetan Sword Villa, the Roy are on their way to Wudu. And he is about to tear his face with Huguizong again. On the other side, the martial emperor Xiaoyao stared at him eagerly, and wanted to die. So even if Ling Tian can barely control the situation now, he undoubtedly needs to find a way to break the situation as soon as possible. Now, this dungeon is his best chance to break the game. Ding. Special hidden mission Shattered Rebirth is on. Ding. Congratulations to the host for winning a god-level lucky draw. Listen to the sound of the system confirmation in the ear. Call. Ling Tian took a breath. At the same time, the eyes gradually become sharper. In that case, I have to change the plan now. Hearing this, Ji Yu Luokong on the side spoke. Master, do you need me to stop Ji Yu Xian? If she forcibly enters the Palace of Junes, I am afraid it will mess up our plan and layout. As we all know, Ji Yu Xian is extremely famous in the 10 kingdoms of Shenxuan. In Ji Yu Luokong's opinion, if she had fallen today, then it will definitely cause a sensation in the 10 kingdoms of Shenxuan. When the time comes, things will be too much to deal with, attracting the attention of countless people. This will undoubtedly affect Ling Tian's plan. And Ling Tian sneered when he heard the words. Need not, now things have become such a situation. That son, don't mind, escalate the incident again. After all, an extremely sharp edge flashed in his eyes. He has only 3 short hours now. So, how can I kill Junes in such a short time? There is only one way now. That is in front of the cultivator boss of Wudu. Lift the table. What do you mean? Do you want to make this matter even bigger? Ji Yu Luokong asked in shock. Yes, and how big the sky in Wudu is, we will make trouble. Ling Tian passed a madness in his eyes. Now that the situation is destined to be irreversible, then I don't need to hide it anymore. Must hurry up before Huguizong can react. Disrupt the situation, bet on the whole cards, and Biff try his best to kill Junes to complete the task. Then grab Ji Yu Qingcheng, who has the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices. As for whether he will tear his face with Huguizong, he doesn't care at all. After all, tearing the face is a matter of time for myself. If this matter is over, Huguizong really has to deal with him regardless of the consequences. He is not afraid at all, because at that time, he already had enough capital to contend with. But the master, with our current forces, there is no way to go head-to-head with the forces stationed in Wudu Huguizong. Would you like me to summon the power of Hidden Sword Villa to come and help? Gu Luokong reminded in a low voice. Need not. Ling Tian shook his head and then mysteriously smiled and said. Our strength is totally enough. Gu Luokong heard the words. Nodded. He was ordered by Ling Tian. He directly took the 4 great sword servants and put on the black robe of the assassin of the Weeping Blood Tower and the mask of evil spirits. Go. Let's go and see what the sect leader Jun Xiao is really good about. Ling Tian puts on the cloak of dark night. Then he issued the first order to Ling Jian. Gather all the assassins of the Weeping Blood building in Wudu to surround the Prince Jun's mansion. With Ling Tian's move, the whole Wu completely exploded the pot. I'm good. What's wrong with this world? Is the killer of the Weeping Blood building so lawless now? In broad daylight, Lang Chenkin, who are they going to kill? Wait, isn't that young palace master Ling Tian? He turned out to be the boss behind the Weeping Blood Tower. My god, he called so many killers, is he going to start a war in Wudu? The sky has changed, the sky has changed. Wudu Palace. Jun Xiaoyao sat on the throne of the Great Hall and discussed with the civil and military officials of Junwu how to negotiate with the Yuha dynasty. Outside the palace gate, a guard leader ran to the palace in a panic to report. Your Majesty Martial Emperor, young palace master of the Shent's military mansion, Ling Tian is crazy. The voice falls. All the civil and military officials looked over in surprise. Tell me, what did he do? The commander of the guard swallowed a bit of horror in response. Young palace master Ling Tian, he summoned the 3,000 assassins of the Weeping Blood Tower and headed towards the northern city Jun's palace. Hearing this, Jun Xiaoyao's face changed and he whispered to the rainy day dust of the Xicheng factory beside him. Ling Tian, what on earth do you want to do? Could it be that he knew about Juqiao Linglongshin? Does he want to attack King Jun's palace without success? Hearing the words of Yu Tianchen, he whispered, Your Majesty, let's wait and see the changes for the time being. The old slave doesn't think that young master Ling Tian dares to be so arrogant and bold to be an enemy of Jun Zishao sect leader. He should know that if he offends Hu Guizong, no one can keep him. Jun Xiaoyao nodded and then said, Ling Tian is a lunatic. So just to be on the safe side, please trouble the factory owner to secretly control the field. Subordinates take orders. Weiyang Palace. Jun Weiyang listened to Ling Tian's move to encircle Prince Jun's mansion just now. She frowned slightly. That stunning face that is all over the world is full of puzzlement. This guy, what do you want to do? Do you want to completely rip off your skin with Hu Guizong? At this moment, a figure in the shadow asked. His Royal Highness, what do we need from the underworld? Was silent for a while. Jun Weiyang suddenly said. Gather power. He wants to make trouble. Let's accompany him to make trouble together. Wudu, it's indeed been calm for too long. Wudu North City, a magnificent great hall in the palace of the Huguo Zong. Hundreds of strong national guardians are guarding outside the hall. Although they didn't say a word. But the terrifying aura makes the void imitate, Buddha has stagnated. And at the moment, protecting the country Zong Xiao sect leader Jun's. He was obsessedly looking at a girl standing in front of him with heavy handcuffs. The girl looks young, she seems to be only 13 or 14 years old. The silver hair, which was as conspicuous as a bright moon, fell down from his waist and draped straight over his ankles. A simple and elegant moon dress, with a black butterfly belt tied around the waist, tightly tied up the delicate waist. Zoom in. The snowy skin of the girl is as fat, as if it is covered with a layer of holy brilliance, and it is not stained with dust. But her cheeks were filled with a touch of crisp powder, dotted with breathtaking charm. Under Jun's undisguised greedy gaze, she passed over her beautiful and heartbreaking perfect face a touch of timidity. Tisk, as expected of a girl with the exquisite heart of 9 orifices. Even though it is immature, it already has a charming appearance. It's so beautiful. Junzi looked at the girl with a smile. After all, an elder from the guardian of the country walked into the great hall and asked respectfully. Les sect leader, when will we set out to protect the country? When Junzi heard the words, his sword eyebrows were light. Then he waved his hand and said with a smile. Tonight. Yes. Guarding State Zong elder got the answer and nodded, then turned and left. And Jun's looked at elder's back, his face gradually gloomy and his voice coldly said to himself. Waiting to leave Wudu City tonight. This seat will kill you all. That's right. For everything today, he has already made a plan. When he catches Jiyu Qingcheng, then he won't hand over Jiyu Qingcheng to some shit to protect the ancestor of the country. The ruler of a small guardian country sect is also worthy of the exquisite heart of the 9 orifices. When he left Wudu, he was ready to wipe out all the strongest guardians of the country. Then he took Jiyu Qingcheng to hide in the world, and after the 9 aperture Linglongshin matured, he picked it again and condensed the Chaos Saint body. And at this moment, a terrifying sword ray lights up. Boom, 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 the sound of thunder blasted into my ears. Dozens of figures outside the great hall rushed directly outside the palace gate. Clank, 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 the sound of fierce fighting resounded across the sky. At the same time a cold voice sounded. Junes, get out of me. Hear this familiar voice. The girl's delicate body trembled, and she subconsciously looked at the door of the palace. A pair of beautiful eyes containing thousands of stars flashed with hazy water. She bit her flower lip and whispered, "Big sis, seeing a girl like this." Junzi raised his eyebrows and then spoke. Devil Dao Sword Fairy, Jiyu Xian. Overwhelmed. After all, Junes walked directly outside the palace with a kind of strong guardian of the country. Under the dazzling sunlight, Jiyu Xian's beauty is stained with blood. Holding a bloody moon knife in both hands, under his feet are the corpses of more than a dozen powerful guardians of the country. Beautiful eyes coldly watched Junes walking out of the palace and said, "Give me back my little sister. Otherwise, even if I die today, it won't make you protect the country sect better." Humph. Junzi snorted softly after hearing the words. Jiyu Xian, how did your courage threaten this seat? Is it possible to rely on your cultivation base, which can break into the sealed king realm? Extremely ridiculous. His voice fell. Clank, 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 clank. Dozens of figures rose into the sky. Dozens of realms' breaths converged into a torrent that resembled a mountain torrent and tsunami and swept towards Jiyu Xian. Boom. Under this terrifying breath, Jiyu Xian was suddenly lifted hundreds of meters away. At the same time, the violent tremor of qi and blood in her body caused a sad and beautiful blood to overflow from the corner of her mouth. However, under the pressure of dozens of realm powerhouses, she still dragged her body, step by step, and walked towards the palace fearlessly. This picture is very shocking. Devil Dao, one man, one sword. In front of the palace, dozens of powerful people in the conferred king realm looked forward to helping him. At this moment, her expression did not change the slightest, and her beautiful eyes were calm. Now that she is ready to die, how can she take a step back? And just when she was preparing to fight to the death with the people who protect the country, I only heard a chuckle. Sect leader, young master protector, it's really a big card. Voice falls. Junes frowned suddenly. I saw assassins wearing black robes and ghost masks coming over from all sides of the palace. Weeping Blood Building. The voice falls. I saw that the killers of the Weeping Blood Tower came to a passage in a tacit understanding. A tall and straight figure pushed aside the crowd and slowly walked up. His appearance seemed to bring a dark night. Most of the light in the sky was swallowed, and it dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye. You are Palace Master Shen's, Ling Tian. Junes recognized the person. The man in front of him is the Ling Tian who is now in the limelight in Wudu, and is said to have lived and died in love with the eldest princess Jan Weong. Reincarnation Great Realm King, look at Junes. Ling Tian looked at Junzi coldly and said to himself. At the same time the Eye of Insight is activated. Name, Junes. Identity, Reincarnated, Heavenly Jade Star Realm King, June Martial God, Sect Leader. Physique, Normal physique belongs to the original owner Junes. True physique, Heavenly Jade Holy Physique. Cultivation base, the realm of the monarchy. Battle winning rate. After estimation, the probability of the host defeating him is 7%. Look at this message. Ling Tian frowned. He didn't expect that Junes's cultivation base would actually reach Zhongshuan realm. You must know that his cultivation base has just reached the 8th realm. The power of Junzan realm has completely exceeded the limit of his combat power. Even if he displays the heaven-defying 7 magic knives, it can't help him at all. After all, own cultivation base is only the king of 8 realms. So, if you want to kill him, there is only one way. Buddha angry Tang Lian. Buddha raged Tang Lian, although not strong in the fantasy world. But it is also considered to be a top existence in the world of martial soul. So he thinks it shouldn't be difficult to kill a realm strong. And many more. Ling Tian suddenly thought of something and said to herself, isn't there another chance for a god-level lottery draw? In case you get a heavenly emperor fist or Zushan sword. It doesn't seem to be a big problem to kill a Junes. Thought of here, Ling Tian started the lottery decisively. Ding. The system prompts the host to start a god-level lottery. Ding. The system prompts that the system is randomly grabbing rewards for the host. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the boss treasure chest. Ding. The system prompts, does the host want to open the boss treasure chest? Hearing this, Ling Tian chose to open it without hesitation. Then a few extremely pleasing voices resounded through my ears. Ding. The boss treasure chest is open. Ding. Congratulations to the host for obtaining Ju Yuan Dan. Ding. Congratulations to the host for acquiring the heavenly Dao level skill Ba Ju Ni Chao. Listen to the system's prompt sound. Ling Tian nodded. Although he didn't get the heavenly emperor punch or Zushan sword he wanted. But he took a closer look at the own reward, and it was unexpectedly good. Shenyuan Dan can directly use Ascension Cultivation base without any side effects. Bahue Niluan is a heavenly Dao level cultivation technique created by a fantasy world boss based on the Taboo God tier Taboo method of the God tier Niluan Bahu. If you used Bahue Niran to perfection, you can raise your hand to destroy the heavens. Hiss. Ling Tian looked at the own reward and sighed with relief. And at this moment, 760, June said coldly. Ling Tian, what do you want to do in my palace with so many assassins from the Weeping Blood building today? Could it be possible, do you want to be an enemy of my country guardian? Ha ha. Ling Tian smiled and then quietly subdued the Shen Yuan Dan. The moment when the power of the medicine melted in his body. He could feel that the true essence in his body was growing and expanding at an extremely savage rate. Boom, 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 although the true essence in his body rang like thunder like an engine. But he still said calmly on the surface. For such a big country guardian, it's a bit shameful to bully a girl. The voice falls. Ji Yu Xian stared at Ling Tian. Suddenly, my heart was upset. You know, this time, the man behind Ji Yu Qingcheng who took her little sister, is the big man who protects the country. Even the dean of the Martial Emperor's family academy did not dare to intervene. However, Ling Tian is here. Why is that? Could it be because of her? Thinking of this, Ji Yu Xian shook her head and spoke softly to Ling Tian. Ling son, you helped Xian with your righteousness today. However, this matter is too involved, so please go back. If Shen's Junfu suffers disaster because of Xian Yuxin can't bear it. After all, I haven't waited for Ling Tian to speak. Jun smiled. He joked with his arms. I see, young master Ling Tian, I want to be an arrogant beauty. Hearing this, Ling Tian glanced at Junzi indifferently. He didn't mean to deny at all. He took Ji Yu Xian's hand and said. You were right, Ji Yu Xian is my woman. And Ji Yu Qingcheng is my sister-in-law. So, do you let it go or don't you let it go? The voice falls. Ji Yu Xian opened her mouth slightly. She looked at Ling Tian sluggishly. Just now Ling Tian said, I am his woman. Besides, isn't his woman Jan Weong? Thinking of this, Ji Yu Xian looked down at her own hand being held in the palm of her hand by Ling Tian. Feeling the comforting warmth, her heartbeat suddenly accelerated, and her red lips lightly murmured. Could it be that he is really interested in me? At this moment, she is in a state of confusion. What she didn't know was, for Ling Tian, Ji Yu Xian is just an excuse to start a war. Sure enough, Junes heard Ling Tian's words. His face was completely cold. Ling Tian, although it's good for the hero to save the United States. But, you don't worry about whether you and your Shen's military mansion are qualified or not. After all, dozens of king-level auras soared to the sky and directly washed away the dark clouds in the sky. At the same time, 4 old figures slowly appeared beside him. And when these old figures appeared, the entire Wudu's void was shaken. 4 Holy Lord Realm powerhouses. And it is the true peak of the Holy Realm. The killing intent was condensed in front of the 4 peak powers of the Holy Realm. The temperature in the entire Wudu city has plummeted by dozens of degrees. Wudu City directly exploded the pot. Countless cultivators shivered under the pressure like mountains and seas. Holy Saint realm powerhouses have all come out. Young Master Ling Tian, do you want to confront the strong in the Holy Realm? 4 Holy Lords, Lord Ling Tian should stop. Amitabha, this coercion is too terrifying. If young Master Ling Tian insists on going his own way again, I am afraid that even the Shen's military mansion will be buried in the endless abyss together. The camera turns back to the scene. Junzi sneered while holding his arms. Ling Tian, even if you regret and want to leave today, there is nothing you can do. Today, in Wudu City, no one can protect you. The 4 beside him. It is the elder of the parliamentary court that protects the country. It is also the 4 leaders who are in charge of the strong guardians in Wudu City. When everyone in Wudu was terrified and shocked by the coercion of the 4 powerful monarchs, a deafening laughter resounded through Wudu. Hu Guizhong is really a good tool. Even the man under the princess dared to move. The voice falls. An extremely tall figure emerged in the void. From a distance, he was as strong as a hill. He carried a black hammer in his hand. The whole exudes an extremely heavy and sky-shaking momentum. He is one of the top 10 masters of Junwu Thunder. At this moment, Wudu's countless cultivators recognized the person. Then, the void again. A middle-aged man carrying an ancient sword also arrived. When he appeared, the sharp swords in the hands of countless swordsmen are in Yuming. There were countless chilling voices from the whole Wu. This is Sword Saint Wind Roar. The sword on his back is the holy sword Wuming. And what followed was a burst of black. A vague figure stood in the black mist. At this time, there was a hoarse voice in Wudu. The shadow of the saint of the underground palace is killed, and the toad of the Long Princess, Jan Weong, has come to help young Master Ling Tian. The strong from the local government appeared. A gloomy and extremely bloody breath swept across Wudu. Everyone got cold after seeing him at first sight. The hairs on the body stand upside down. Shen Profound Continent, the saint of the first assassin organization Underworld. My God, Your Royal Highness Princess Long is in love, Lord Ling Tian. For the safety of young Master Ling Tian, she has summoned so many powerful people to be the enemy of National Guardian sect. This is undoubtedly true love. Really hammered. Countless male cultivators looked at Ling Tian gorgeously. How can I ask who doesn't want to have a beautiful girlfriend who loves her own? When these 3 Holy Realm powerhouses come, Junzi's face has become unsightly. He never expected that Jan Weong would fight for Ling Tian so much. Not only did the Titan Sage and Sword Saint be invited, but he even called an underworld powerhouse. And at this moment, a luxurious car crown slowly drove over from a distance. An ice leaf on the crown of the car illustrates the distinguished identity of the visitor. This is known as the Queen of Ice in the Kingdom of Martial God. Palace Master Tianyi Military Mansion, Yi Qinglo. When the crown came slowly, everyone present can put an egg in their mouths. Yi Qinglo, the first of the top 10 strong men of Junwu. Even the 4 old Zong faces behind Junzi changed their expressions. She is here. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.